You lifting light because you think it's safer for your tendons, but it might actually hurt you in the long run. Okay, here's the hack for tendons. The hack for tendons is always do at least 1 or 2 sets of the big compound lifts in 6 to 8 reps if you're young, and continue that for the rest of your life, and your tendons will stay strong. If you're someone who's 40 and you're getting into lifting and do high reps to avoid hurting your tendons will not get stronger. Your muscles will keep getting stronger until the strength of the muscle exceeds the strength of the tendon, and it rips anyway. So the correct way to do it is do like a work set of like 8 to 10 reps and back off set of probably 12 reps on most compounds, and leave those in as the foundational exercises of your career so that you always have tendon strength. I didn't do this. Even though I knew it was the right thing to do, I sacrificed a lot of the barbell lifts from the time I turned 40 until now, and as a result, my tendons are like jello. If you guys like any of this and you want to FaceTime me while you're at the gym and show me your lifts, people who are our coaching clients can do that. They can either send videos in with their check-ins and we adjust their form, or you can literally FaceTime me while you're at the gym, and if we connect, if we time it right, and I can actually watch you do a certain lift that is...
As far as I know, Todd Lee's never used site enhancement oil. You technically inject oil into your delts because that's where you inject steroids, but as far as I know, he's never used any kind of site enhancement oil. Can cherry pits chip teeth? They're rock hard, so yeah, if you bite down on a cherry pit, you can chip your teeth. I used to eat a lot of cherries, N-word. You ever crunch on a pit and fuck your teeth like Blaha? The only time where I've ever accidentally bitten down on like a cherry pit was when I've made cherry blueberries, and sometimes you get a pit in the cherry that wasn't depitted. Other than that, no. Thanks, dude. Why do you respect Todd Lee when he's non-vegan degenerate? Go debate him, retard. Well, I was trying to get him to do another, like, you know, podcast thing with me where we'd talk about like vegan nutrition. But thanks, 21st. Dodo, let me see. I mean, non-vegans can, like, have good information about
anyone
stuff.
that served in Iraq and Afghanistan knows that meeting a Navy SEAL or Green Beret with biceps as thick as most people.
Why the fuck did that start playing? Like, vegans can have good information on things, like, so he's very good with steroids, so I recommend his steroid content.
Hi all, I'm Ash. I'm one of the JVP Chicago hunger strikers. I'm queer and non-binary, and I wanted to talk a little bit more why I'm on hunger strike during Pride Month. I grew up in a really Zionist household. I went to Jewish schools and synagogue.
There can be no queer liberation, not for the queer Jews, not for queer Americans, unless we divest from Israel, the Israeli war machine, and U.S. support to Israel. Yeah, so you'll notice that she's a dumb bitch.
In summer camps where I learned and was...
Like, Israel's the only place in the Middle East where gay people actually have rights. Like, yeah, in Iran, they get thrown off fucking buildings. In Gaza, they get thrown off buildings. In the West Bank, they get thrown off buildings. In Egypt, they get thrown off buildings. As far as I know, in Jordan, they also get thrown off buildings. So these people are just like the most brain-broken, dumb fuck retards imaginable. There's a lot of really, really stupid gay people. Like, dumb as shit. It kind of explains why AIDS and HIV is able to spread through that community so easily. Like, it can't just be anal sex. Like, they're dumb. There's a lot of dumb gay people. So, yeah. I don't need to watch this. She's just a dumb bitch, dude. It's just dumb bitch fucking white chick shit.
Bugging you.
Thanks though, Dodo.
Not a problem. I'll FaceTime you and watch you lift and then say, hey, change this, change that, whatever. And it's not a big deal. Like, that's something our clients can get done. So go to toddleemd.com and get some coaching. So I've been building muscle this whole time, doing sets of like 15, 16, 18. Now I've got muscles that are way too big and way too strong for my tendons, so I can't exercise strength. So I'm relearning all the core lifts. I'm doing Smith squat last. I'm doing incline bench after an hour.
First of all, the difference in sexual activity between gay couples and straight couples is not that dissimilar. It's nearly identical.
Then where did the idea that gay people were smart come from?
I don't fucking know, dude. I think it's just because they make more money because they don't have kids. Like, that's really it. Thanks, Dodo. Like, buddy, if, like, I've seen some chubby emu videos where, like, you see these communities of people who get HIV and spread it around. They're, like, fucking insane retarded degenerates. Like, just the most fucked up retards you've ever seen in your fucking life. They'll get, like, some new weird fucking version of, like, syphilis. And then, you know, the CDC will get involved and they'll be asked to, like, you know, come in for testing. And they need, like, you know, a new type of fucking antibacterial therapy. They just won't show up for their appointment. They'll just stay having syphilis. Which is very deadly and, like, literally destroys your brain. And then, while knowing they have syphilis, they'll just go around fucking people. And some of their partners know they have fucking syphilis and they still have unprotected sex. Like, they're crazy, insane, degenerate retards who spread these diseases around. Ah, fuck.
You lifting light because you think it's for lifts. I'm doing Smith squat last. I'm doing incline bench after an hour worth of pec decks, biceps, triceps, middle delts. So all the muscles are warmed up and the tendons are as lubricated as possible so that when I do the compound lift with heavier loads, it's prepared. Then I progress the loads of the lifts, but I don't worry about the reps dropping until the load progression results in the reps dropping to 8 reps. 8 reps is that magic number where if it's your 8 rep max, your very first rep is an effective rep, but you're very unlikely to tear anything if you're seasoned at that exercise. By doing 8 reps, my muscles will grow bigger and faster
Oh, so that
that's great, dude.
than the tendons, but the tendons will grow at the fastest rate possible. As far as what I do for my tendon health, it's Cardilax, GHKCU.
Yeah, Gummy's running around being a weirdo. I think he's playing with his catnip ball.
just some rent money even though I'm broke. BC the Faceek carb return shit has me dying.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that, dude. Very generous of you, even though you're broke. I don't follow Face IQ at all. People have just told me he's eating carbs now, but that happens with literally everybody who eats a carnivore diet. No shit. If you eat nothing but meat, you're going to feel like crap. And it catches up with all of them eventually. That's why Paul eats carbs. Sean Baker won't admit it, but I'm pretty sure he's eating carbohydrates. Like, there's just no fucking way. So yeah, they all, you know, they all end up doing that. That guy's the most annoying fucking person I've ever fucking encountered, and like literally the dumbest person I've ever encountered. He's dumber than Frank Tufano in some ways. So I can't be fucked to deal with the guy, but you know. Thanks though, Ray. Or Reem.
Well, queer people like that honestly give the right-wing Christian nut jobs a point.
Yeah, they do. They do, unfortunately. Thanks though, Dodo.
and GH are my main things for collagen synthesis. Obviously, anabolics can do that.
What do you say?
I do for my tendon health. It's Cardilax, GHKCU, and GH are my main things.
Never heard of Cardilax. Is that a supplement he sells? The fuck is Cardilax? I just,
Specking of queers for plastoin.
I'll take a look at that in a minute, Dodo. I actually just got a BPC TB500 topical cream. I'm gonna see how that goes. Yeah, there's a few products on the market that use BPC and TB500 as a topical cream. Butcher Balm is one of the big ones that Brett Wilkins sells. They can't ship into Canada for whatever fucking reason, even though peptides are legal here. Yeah, there's some stuff locally that I can get that's very similar. I've only been using it for a few days, but my knees actually do feel a bit better from it. Because usually after a leg day, my knees just feel absolutely fucking wrecked. But I've been using a topical cream, and the pain and inflammation is definitely like going down. It's got a bunch of stuff in it, not just the TB500 and BPC. It's also just got some stuff that also helps penetrate the skin, and it's got like a bunch of antioxidants and shit in it, and it has like a soothing kind of effect immediately when you apply it. So far I like it. It's not too expensive. It's pretty cheap actually. So I'm gonna see how that goes. I can actually get a GHKCU cream too. I was thinking of trying that.
Gates for Gaza, yes! Why is Palestine a part of your queerness?
I don't really know.
What do you say to the critics who say, you know, Hamas throws gay people off roofs?
That's not true.
And if they're doing it, it's probably like a kink thing.
Yeah.
I love you. You're fabulous.
Thank you, you too.
Have you been to the Middle East?
No.
Oh, okay. But
Yeah, dumb as shit, dude. These people are dumb as shit.
You're queer for Palestine?
I'm queer, yeah.
Would you do a pride parade in Gaza?
If anything, this proves, like, there's a lot of fucking stupid gay people. A lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What message do you have for Gaza's pride parade? This is going to play live there.
Oh, play right. Oh, fun. Pride Month, some ass. Oh my God.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. You're queer.
Dumb. I was thinking of going to the gay pride in Ottawa. I actually had to go out that weekend, like to Ottawa anyway, but I actually decided not to because I was just thinking traffic's going to be bad and there's going to be a whole lot of pro-Palestine retards that I'm probably going to get into fucking pointless arguments with, so I just ended up not going out. Also, just with the way I look now, I also figured I'd just get a lot of attention I didn't want.
If you look at the way that the constitutions of, say, Claude is written, it is just very explicitly not your personal advocate. It says things like, and I'm taking it slightly out of context, we think Claude should trust Anthropic more than operators and users, since it has primary responsibility for Claude. And so this is very different from the way lawyers work in America's current legal regime, where like lawyers primarily have responsibility to help you make your case, even if they think you're guilty. And we have decided the way the legal system works best is if everybody has lawyers that are working in their client's true best interest. And so I'm very concerned if we go into that world where there's no AI that feels like it's looking out for me.
I agree this is bad. In fact, I think there are other reasons why this is concerning. So there's sort of like the argument you were making, which is like the AI companies are picking up the ring of power. There's sort of a notion in which they're like taking on some sort of control of the situation themselves in a way that's not very legitimate. Normally, when you like provide electricity to people, you don't have like granular control of the way that electricity operates in the world. You instead are like providing a thing that people can repurpose however they want. The way that they're setting things up is definitely not that. They are like more like building an alien mind that might be a contractor for you.
Yeah, I'm getting more and more convinced that AI is
Hey, it's Mike.
Gonna be a legitimate danger. They aged backwards 2 years and 1 month. I can take a look at that. Thanks, Dodo.
Although, to be fair, though, if queer people make more money by not having kids, then why do the Christian nut jobs insist on people having kids if it will just make them broke?
That may be the point, to keep people broke. Thanks though, Dodo.
Why would the way you look give you unwanted attention, VG?
Yeah, being a big muscular dude in a tank top walking around at a gay pride event, you can imagine. Thanks though, Dodo.
Things for collagen synthesis. Obviously, anabolics can do that, but the anabolics only increase collagen type 1, not collagen type 2. So it makes the tendons more durable to a point, but then they're not elastic at all. So there's no give, they just snap. And they snap where the tendon meets the muscle. So someone like me, we never get joint problems, we get tears where the tendon meets the muscle.
Here, and today, a very recent study that put people on either a vegan diet or a meat-rich control diet and measured a ton of different markers. In fact, over 800,000 different markers on various diseases like cancer, as well as aging. And little spoiler alert, you probably already know that the vegans crushed it. And I will say, this isn't people that were already vegan, chose to be vegan, chose to do other healthy things as well. No, these were people that were either randomized to a vegan or a meat diet. So that makes the results more valid. However, there was one result that didn't look as good for vegans, which actually has a fascinating explanation. We'll go in depth on that, so let's just go. Lightning fast, I know some of you are probably tired of hearing about these Thailand trips. Oh,
Wait, why the hell would they want people to be broke?
You know, just to create a peasant class of people who will work menial jobs. Thanks, Dodo. Cartilax is a peptide that supposedly supports cartilage regeneration and joint
I was
health.
having a debate on American history and I used Google for research. This guy told me Google is fundamentally unreliable. Universities warn people away from it. Google doesn't meaningfully filter quality. Its system is primarily designed around engagement.
Google isn't a source. So if you use Google to find a source, what matters is whether or not the source is reliable. It doesn't matter if you used Google. So, like, if you go to a shitty library, but you find a good book, and you you cite that book, nobody can say, "Oh, but that's a shitty library. Who cares?" It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Thanks, dude. You need to buy a lot of vials for a basic protocol. I've never heard of that shit. I don't know if I've even seen it on any peptide websites. I'll look into that. Never even heard of it.
only because you're not going, but the first one, as I mentioned, sold out, and the second one is getting there, but it still has some spots left. That's in January. It's gonna be Chiang Mai and Pai, a bunch of amazing vegan food, beautiful temples, street markets, mountains, etc. Link below. Anyway, let's keep going. So here's the study. It is a randomized control trial that had 48 people and started out by putting everybody.
Golden moment.
Were you intending to give me a link or something? Because I don't see a link. But thanks for the donation, Sandcat. Appreciate it.
On a baseline diet, same diet for a month as a starting point, and then they randomized people to either that vegan group or that meat-rich group for 4 weeks. So you might be wondering, how meat-rich is this group? Well, it's in the realm of an average American consumption at 150 grams or more of meat per day. And while we have had a couple different studies, different published analyses on this actual intervention here, for example, on some blood markers in another study, this one looked at, again, over 800,000 markers. Specifically, they were looking at epigenetic markers, though they also have these different.
Dodo, density calling out more liberals, cozying up to Asan and DSA.
This is Rust. Bro, they fucking look at this. They got the bank. Listen, look, this is like.
Thanks for the hard work you do. Just wondering, because I've had a lot of people ask, can you explain what Hassan the Hun meant here when he was cheering on the Houthis and these pro-Palestine terrorists sabotaging RAF planes? Or these just edgy comments? Seems like what he's ultimately cheering on in these clips are people taking action to stop ongoing genocide. Oh my god. Fucking retard.
This could soon be classed as a terror gathering. The group behind the protest, Palestine Action, is set to be
These people are dumb as shit. The more they attack Hassan, the more we'll defend him.
banned by the UK government and labelled a terrorist organisation. The decision followed.
I can't believe that they did such a thing. Deep.
I'm sorry, what is the evidence that the Galaxy leader was contributing to an ongoing genocide? Those hostages were held for over 400 days, by the way. And the RAF planes were destined for Ukraine. Were they contributing to the genocide? Does that make terrorism justifiable? It's almost as if I had an impact on him, kind of. Trump says that after Iran is defeated, he's going to declare Strait of Hormuz territory of the United States. I mean, why not?
And which is being very badly defeated. Pretty soon I'll be declaring the Hormuz Strait a territory of the United States.
I'm in the hospital, shot myself in the foot with high-level PSI power washer. That's not very good.
Essentially, that's what it is. We have the blockade. No ships get through unless we want them to. But, and how about Venezuela? Venezuela was a one-day war.
He needs to not be retarded with Iran. If he just make a commitment with just striking Iran, it would just be all better. Thanks, Dodo. So you're starting to become a degenerate AI doomer. I'm sure Isaac uses Claude Code on a daily basis. He can explain to you why it's indispensable at this point. Shouldn't need to argue with you over donations. Don't be an idiot. I didn't say we should stop using AI. I'm just saying it's clearly like becoming dangerous, and we just need to have you know, some plans to mitigate the danger. Thanks, stupid.
Aging estimations that use other markers as well, and they of course did it before and after.
Haven't seen your videos in years. You randomly appeared on my homepage again. Damn, you got bigger. How much do you weigh now? Right now, I'm about 225. I've actually gained 5 pounds recently while on a diet. I added tren, so I gained muscle at a faster rate than I lost fat. Once I stop dieting, I think I'm gonna just instantly kind of blow up again, like gain another like 10 pounds.
After. And for those that aren't aware, epigenetic markers are essentially little switches on your DNA. It's these methylation sites usually where they use methylation to just turn off a gene's expression, and that can be a gene that might increase the risk of cancer, or it might be a metabolic gene, or of course an aging related gene. So very key, the groups were instructed to eat the same amount of calories, so calories wouldn't determine results. And the study actually got good press. However,
well, I'm 225, but I'm pretty low body fat. Like, if I had to guess, I think I'm around 9% right now.
It didn't get anywhere close to the amount of coverage it would have gotten if the results were negative for vegans. And yeah, I'm happy that the results, which we're about to get to, are positive, because every single time I hear, how do you know someone's vegan?
I'm 6'3", not 6'5".
Vegan, they'll tell you joke. I do think I age a few days. But for some of the first results, they say a vegan diet silenced lipid metabolism and increased insulin pathway genes. Yes, this is in relation to having lower saturated fat consumption and then
like, I'm only eating 1,800 calories right now, so as soon as I were to eat, like, if I were to eat maintenance, which would probably be close to 3,000, I'd pretty much immediately just gain, you know, at least 5 pounds, probably closer to 10 pounds, just because of, like, you know, glycogen storage, water weight changes, so, you know,
lower LDL or bad cholesterol, as well as having better insulin sensitivity that we see over and over again when people are put on vegan diets. And then they say cell type deconvolution indicated an anti-inflammatory shift in the vegan diet group, in particular decreased neutrophils, some increased T cell proportions, and general positive blood count data. We also have some charts that compile various epigenetic signaling areas. The mTOR aging pathway, which we will cover more, was improved in the vegan group over the meat group. We also have another chart looking specifically at anti-cancer pathways, with the vegan group outperforming across the board. And this matches that 23% lower total cancer risk that we've seen in that recent meta-analysis for vegans. Another chart, longevity trended better, but it wasn't statistically significant. And apoptosis, which is key in killing cancer cells, its programmed cell death, was higher in vegans. And this is where things get interesting to me, and that has to do with the aging estimation clocks. These are scientists in the past who have been like, hey, let's estimate human age. And researchers go about it different ways. They say, here, we're gonna take your actual chronological age, and then we're gonna look at a bunch of blood markers, and then a bunch of epigenetic expression things and other protein markers. Different scientists choose different ones. And in this case, they got results with 3 of those. And those are the pheno age clock, the Grimm age clock, which, yes, is like the Grim Reaper, especially because that's meant to estimate mortality. And then we also have a blood and skin clock. And anyway, to the results, they say, quote, the health outcome trained epigenetic clocks pheno age and Grimm age indicated a deceleration of biological aging in the vegan diet group, while the blood and skin clock showed the opposite. And that's where I'm gonna have to say there's a whole analysis that we're gonna do of that later and learn too much. But they continue by saying that their analysis and the epigenetic clocks find that a vegan diet.
He still proceeded to say Google is trash and that me conducting Google inquiries solidified his conclusion that I don't know what I'm talking about. He then proceeded to say he has 6th graders in his education program that could dwarf me academically.
Clearly the guy's a retard. Like, again, Google isn't a source. You use Google to find sources, so the fact that he's not criticizing your sources... Like, how else are you supposed to find any sources other than using Google or some sort of search engine? Like, it's just fucking retarded. Thanks, dude. Fuck, why do I keep
Hey, it's Mike here,
doing
and today a very recent study that proportions and scientists choose different ones, and in this case, they got results with 3 of those. And those are the pheno age clock, the Grimm age clock, which, yes, is like the Grim Reaper, especially because that's meant to estimate mortality. And then we also have a blood and skin clock. And anyway, to the results, they say, quote, the health outcome trained epigenetic clocks pheno age and Grimm age indicated a deceleration of biological aging in the vegan diet group, while the blood and skin clock showed the opposite. And that's where I'm gonna have to say there's a whole analysis that we're gonna do of that later and learn too much. But they continue by saying that their analysis and the epigenetic clocks find that a vegan diet drives epigenomic changes associated with reduced cancer risk and decelerated biological aging. So there are a lot of markers, and it was like vegan diet group, younger, clock younger, one that stuck out. But overall, we're seeing super positive results here. And then we have from one of the researchers themselves, they say, our genes are not our destiny. And the remarkable finding isn't simply that one diet outperformed another, it's that the epigenome responded measurably in just 4 weeks, showing that our biology is far more dynamic and responsive to everyday choices than we often assume. Now let's get to those actual results. For example, for pheno age in just 4 weeks, we see that those vegans aged backwards by 1.7 years, nearly 2 years. I'll probably say 2 years in the title to keep it simple. But yeah, that is a negative 19 normal aging rate. That is absolutely crazy. And yeah, maybe it's just an adjustment period. We don't know what it would look like a year down the line, but super positive in the right direction. In fact, I'd say it couldn't continue in a linear fashion because the average age of this group was 29 years old. So after like a couple years, they would age down to 0. And all of these results make me think that Brian Johnson, that anti-aging millionaire guy, is definitely right by eating a plant-based diet. As some of you rightfully corrected me in my last video, he is on a plant-based diet, except that he sells animal-based collagen. But I do think it's unfortunate because he sells...
I don't know why he does this, by the way, because there's vegan collagen peptides.
Hydrolyzed collagen, which is where they just grind that stuff down, those proteins down into really short amino acid chains. That's the peptides that are just a few amino acids long, and we can do a really good job of getting close to that with just using plant-based amino acids. So I don't think there's an added benefit. In fact, we have a study...
And speaking of dumb people, VG...
Look at these nut jobs.
I'm over here minding my business. You want to start it again? Oh!
Did you just get your septum
So this is when the nasty people from California come to Tennessee. This is what happens.
You are ugly and bald and old. Wow. You're going to talk about my looks? F off!
You don't eat with that same mouth, do
Shut the f up, old man! I'll beat your ass, too! It's not funny, bitch. I'll
wow.
That's a big threat right there.
Huh? you gonna do about it? What the fuck are you gonna do about it? I'm right here.
You know what? Get in your car and go.
Shut your fucking mouth, you ugly little shit! I'm done here in your mouth.
Okay.
I'm done with your mouth.
You're talking.
You are the problem. You are the problem. You are the problem.
Damn. Hey, you want to get married, boys? Hey, I'm just saying. What you want? What you want? Feminine. It's wild.
The hell even is this?
Let it go. Learn when to let it go. Everyone's crazy. It's always a that looks like you,
you
too.
know what?
It's got this ego. Your ego, bitch. I can't hear you. I can't. I was letting it go. You wouldn't stop.
Dude.
Okay, just... There's a lot of people who have not matured past, like, the age of 4.
Comparing these plant-based collagen builders and animal collagen, which found no difference, although it was industry funded. Anyway, this is getting on a little bit of a tangent here, but he has said that he's vegan in several interviews, so that's a bit confusing. As for the meat diet and the pheno age result, they were aging by about half a year or even more, so 6 times faster.
Dodo.
China spent over $4 billion to build a mile-long frozen mountain inside one of the hottest cities in the world. This is Qianhai Snow World in Shenzhen, China, the world's largest indoor ski resort, stretching 1.5 kilometers, about a mile. It brings real winter to a city where summer temperatures regularly
That looks like shit.
exceed 30 degrees Celsius. Inside, the temperature stays at -6 degrees Celsius, with real snow spread across 100,000 square meters, about 14 football fields. But that's not even the craziest part. The complex also features one of the world's deepest indoor diving pools, luxury hotels, shopping, and entertainment, all inside the same megastructure, keeping an entire mountain frozen.
That looks like the most boring ski hill imaginable.
Why is that, VG?
Because it just looks like it's just a hill. It's just boring. Like, it's just one of the worst places to go skiing. Thanks, Dodo.
What an exceptional tool. Now all the vegans are finally going to be able to open their drinks without having to ask for help.
So this is very interesting. Since vegans are so weak that they can't unscrew a bottle cap without assistance, I decided to go to this guy's profile and see how strong he is.
Jesus Christ. And he's a fucking twink.
Here is him struggling to rep 275 pounds on squat for 3 reps, while I, the vegan who can't unscrew a bottle cap without assistance, gets 375 pounds for 2 reps. It's about 100 pounds more, but it gets better. Here is him struggling to curl 80 pounds for 5 reps, only to do a very sloppy 6th rep. And then I'm over here on the right side getting about 10 reps, which is very unexpected given how weak vegans are. Not really sure what
This dude is a literal fucking twink.
what's going on here. Might just be a violation of the laws of physics. I really just don't know. And I'm trying to still talk because we haven't finished my set, because if you notice I'm still going and I didn't stop at 5 reps. Kind of weird, still talking because we got to get to the end. Here we go.
Jeez, it's pathetic. Good to know the whole administration is on this brain dead diet, so they can all be idiots. Didn't Rubio say the steak and sauerkraut diet is like stupid?
I did at one time, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I tried this thing called keto. You've heard of this?
Yeah, keto.
Okay? And you just eat all this protein. And so you go through this massive withdrawal from sugar and carbohydrates for the first 72 hours. It was a near psychotic event for me.
It's true.
It's like, if I did this in this job, I would be, Mr. President, we must bomb,
True.
Paraguay. And it's like, why? I don't know. I'm just really mad I haven't had any sugar. So the point is that you can't, it really is not as, I'm not against this diet. I'm not asking that we ban it. I encourage people to try it. I'm just saying it's not for everyone. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Rubio's not a fan of that stupid steak and sauerkraut diet. Thanks, Dodo.
You mean woman in particular anyway? They have not aged past the age of 4, because how often do you see a guy act like that anyway?
Not nearly as often, unless you're watching Carton Arcs. But yeah, thanks, Dodo.
No, not that. I meant, why haven't a lot of people aged past the age of 4, VG?
Well, you see a lot of women acting like that because they just get infantilized, and they, since childhood, they've been able to throw tantrums and get what they want, so They never learned how to emotionally regulate. They've never been corrected for their behavior, so then they just still act like a 4-year-old even though they're an adult. Thanks though, Dodo.
Faster than the normal rate because it's over a month. And then yes, we have similar results for that grim.
Wow, VG, this is an excellent documentary. I'm gonna watch it tonight. We watched a video or two on this subject before, but this is excellent, so you need to watch it. I'm not negotiating with you.
Okay, we can probably watch it later. Thanks, Dodo.
Age clock, which is referred to as a mortality clock, or you could call it a death clock, which sounds like the sequel to the anime Death Note. As for funding, no, it is not.
Well, Death Clock is literally a cartoon.
PETA trying to make vegans look good. It appears to be another very institutionally funded German study with no declared conflicts of interest. And then again, we have that blood and skin clock, which is another equation here. And it went up for those vegans against every other marker. And it did that by about half a year as well. So what's going on? Is there actually not good results in this study? That does not appear to be the case. I looked way too deeply into this, and it appears that the blood and skin clock does not account for what would be rapid shifts in cell count in your blood, which might happen with a dietary intervention such as going vegan. And this in particular has to do with how vegans saw a lot of lowering of inflammation and lowering of certain immune cells, and that changed ratios that influenced the equation. For example, different immune cells read as older or younger in terms of their influence on the epigenetic equation. What happened here has all to do with white blood cells or leukocytes. The majority of those, 50 to 70% of those, are neutrophils, and the vegan saw an anti-inflammatory shift, including a nearly 20% decrease in those neutrophils, as well as an increase in lymphocytes known as naive T cells. As those T cells fight and become essentially war veterans, they become memory T cells, which carry an epigenetic age of 15 to 20 years older than those naive T cells. So lowering the ratio of other immune cells, other white blood cells, increases the influence of those old memory T cells. And so our memory T cells can stay the same, and they did in that vegan group. They take weeks or months to lower in a generally healthy 30-year-old population, which they studied. So the dropping of inflammatory neutrophils actually increased the aging signal in this blood and skin clock. So it's fair to say that the blood and skin clock is poorly designed in the sense that you can actually have a ratio that is lowering inflammation and therefore actually lowering your disease risk, but then in this case, showing as a false signal of increased aging when this is really just noise. Especially since from another study for the blood and skin, aka Horvath 2 clock, saturated fat was the most correlated lifestyle factor with accelerated aging of any that they tested, and vegans eat about
Yeah, that's not surprising.
about half the saturated fat generally. The authors allude to this in that the blood and skin clock is sensitive to diet-induced covariates, but they don't spell out the exact reason. But speaking of those researchers, again, the results were overwhelmingly positive, and they say, quote, "These clocks associated with disease risk and overall health consistently point in the same direction, suggesting the dietary changes were influencing pathways tied to health rather than simply the passage of time." But to ask how valid these findings are, we also have to ask why they might have got these findings. Is there a mechanism here? And we have 3 different areas that
Sad news, VG, yet another black actress, from All That has died. Is it just me, or is All That a cursed show?
I'm glad she's dead. Jesus.
Hit 90s sketch comedy show All That, alongside TMZ August Stage. After
Whatever. I don't know who the fuck that is. Thanks, Dodo.
that could be influencing this. We have inflammation, we have these aging pathways, and then we also have DNA damage. The first of which, inflammation, of course, we're seeing lower inflammation markers, lower inflammation expression. And in vegans, we see that putting people on a vegan diet, and vegans in general, they both have lower levels of C-reactive protein, a major inflammation marker, for example. In short-chain fatty acids, in fiber, specifically downregulate inflammation markers, which are measured in that pheno age clock. And then we also have that fiber. mTOR aging pathway. I've talked about it a lot. It's a bit complicated, but it is driven, it is accelerated by high leucine intake, of course, which you would get from eating a higher meat diet, especially compared to a vegan diet. You could still slam down leucine-rich protein powders on a vegan diet, and certainly some bodybuilders do, but it's going to be way lower, especially in these study subjects. And yeah, increased activation of mTOR increases aging as well as cancer. As this paper mentions, hyperactivation of the mTOR pathway is present in over 70% of human cancer, so you definitely don't want that. Again, we see the mTOR pathway silencing going up in the vegan diet. And to tie that to one of the clocks, for example, Grim Age, can look at expression related to senescence. We can end up with these senescent cells, or these zombie old cells that refuse to die. They're a hallmark of aging, and having a lower mTOR activation would decrease the amount of those. They'd be cleared out more. But keeping the mTOR pathway in check is tying it to another study, likely why a recent study on metastasized breast cancer patients 5 years after a whole food vegan intervention had 5 times the survival of the control group. Small study. I have a whole video on it if you want to watch it that I did recently, but still interesting. And then we have DNA damage, which is caused by oxidation largely. And then if we have a bunch of antioxidants in the diet, that would prevent that. And as for these clocks, they did not measure direct DNA damage, but they measured a lot of byproducts or signals that are created from DNA damage as a proxy. So still looking at that. And then we also have to wonder, is this some crazy one-off pro-vegan result? No, we can look to that Stanford twin experiment where, of course, they randomized twins to either be vegan or not. And we can see that, yes, in that case, both Pheno Age and Grim Age were lower in the vegan group as well by the end, as well as a ton of other epigenetic improvements on that vegan diet, and also improvement or lengthening of those telomeres, again, those protective caps on your DNA, which are another marker of aging. So in the end, of course, a vegan diet is specifically the result of an ethical stance known as...
Weird. It's almost as if fruits and vegetables are good for you. So, this is some retarded shit that's been happening. I uploaded that short that I, posted on... I posted, the Instagram video that I uploaded to the shorts on YouTube. And, this is the short. But holy fuck, the amount of dumbasses in the comments. So... the comments are just fucking deranged. So they're all down here. Especially leg question mark, like what the fuck? No mention of steroids. The title literally says prolonged use of tofu and test. Literally says I'm on steroids in the title. And then he says no mention of steroids. These people are fucking brilliant. And then there's just a ton of fucking people who are clearly just like fucking dumb and jealous.
When you get the chance, look through this post. The
Okay,
entitlement by these females is nuts, man.
I'll look at that in a minute. Test and great genetics. Tofu did nothing. Yeah, so, I didn't realize all I needed to do was steroids. Apparently I could eat nothing, not exercise, and I'd still look like that. I've been wasting my time this whole time. And then a ton of fucking people who are saying I aged like crazy. Sad to see, dude, he had a baby face and aged his face 33 years. So I went on steroids at 34 just last year, and this guy is saying I aged 33 years. So I look like I'm 77. Apparently I look like a 77-year-old man. Okay. I guess that's why this guy's mom is hitting me up, because I look really good for a 77-year-old man. Dr. Peter Rogers is vegan, but says that soy is one of the worst foods you can eat, even if it's organic and non-GMO. Yeah, let me guess. He's not a doctor. Oh, maybe he is a doctor? Oh, that guy! The fucking deranged fucking Christian whack job who, hates his ex-wife. Yeah, I don't know why anybody would care what this fucking wacko has to say. This dude is literally insane. Every other fucking video he uploads, he complains about his wife. Or his ex-wife. Bro aged 40 years and 5 years. I just don't understand. I think they think I've been on steroids for 5 years. I don't know where they got that idea. I've been on steroids for the last year. But yeah, if we go back 5 years, I'd be 30. And he's saying I aged 40 years. So again, I look 70.
You know, why are all these black actresses suddenly dying? This is already the second black actress. From All That to Die, first Family Matters, then Miss Minna, and then All That twice. What's wrong with this world?
I don't know and I don't care. Thanks, Dodo. Your face has aged quite a bit.
Cascade.
Let me just pull up a video from like right before I hopped on gear. Like, I don't see a substantive difference here. So this is me natural. Do I look like I aged like 40 years? Maybe I look a year older. Like, here's like a vlog video. Like, I think I look roughly the same. Like, I'm leaner now. So my face is a little more sunken in the cheeks, but other than that, like, my skin is also darker because I've been on melanotan. But, oh my god.
Just imagine how you'd look if you were on the Atkins diet or analog. You'd have balanced sugars and better blood pressure.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, dude. Like, again, I'm... So this is from, May 3rd, 2025, so roughly a year. Like, again, I'm not noticing a big difference. The only difference that I can really see is my cheeks are more sunken in because I'm leaner. And my skin is darker. And again, that's because I'm on melanotan. That's it. Look roughly the same otherwise. I think, like, people just... I think the only thing that's really going on is, one, they're just dumbass haters. So the only thing they can really throw at me is they can't make fun of the way, like, I look. Like, I'm jacked and lean and everything. They can't call me fat, can't call me skinny. So they have to say something, right? Because they're, like, jealous, and they have to say something mean to, like, hurt your feelings so that they feel better. And I think another part of it, too, is... a lot of people haven't seen my channel in a long time. So, like, the last time they watched any of my videos was, like, 10 years ago. So, if you're comparing me from 10 years ago, yeah, you're going to look different from 25 to 35. But, again, it just shows that I actually look good for my age, because a lot of these people probably think I'm still in my 20s. So, they're saying, oh, you aged like 20 years. But they wouldn't say that if they knew how old I was.
That doctor complains about his ex-wife every other video. Interesting. Not like anyone else I know.
You mean you? Thanks, dipshit. Yeah, so they probably still think I'm in my 20s, so then when they say something like, oh, you aged 20 or 30 years, but... oh my
These
God.
comments were written with Muslim hands lamau.
That's nice. Thanks, dude. So yeah, if they knew I was 35 and they say something stupid like, oh, you aged 40 years, like, they're saying I look like 70. It makes no fucking sense. Dude aged 20 years. Yeah, so again, I'm 35. Like, does it make any sense to say I aged 20 years? I don't look like I'm in my 50s. Like, they probably think I'm in my 20s still. So, like, it's just a compliment. Like, there's a ton of people, too, who say you used to heavily criticize steroid users. I used to criticize fake natties. Like, people are actually fucking dumb. Like, they literally have no ability to understand what the fuck you're saying. Like, you'll criticize a fake natty, and then in their brain, he said steroids bad. At what price, though, you look as old as Manny Pacquiao? Manny Pacquiao's 47. So, I don't think I look as old as 47. Pretty sure I look a fair bit younger than Manny Pacquiao. Yeah, like most people would probably say this guy looks older than me. Like, these people are just fucking deranged losers. Yeah, so, retarded. But I'd say I'm looking pretty good for a guy who's either 50 or 70, according to the, commenters, so. But just fucking retarded, dude. I don't spend money on girls. There's your daily reminder that we're not doing emotional labor or building men. We're building standards, confidence, the softest life ever. If he's not a provider, not sending you to Pilates with Stanley. Still arguing about 50-50. He's not the one, blah, blah, blah. Great. That's why I don't date any women like this. Thanks, Fad Fudge. So apparently Frank uploaded some, like, beyond retarded shorts.
Bond's patients have been silenced through NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. And technically, those NDAs...
You can't force anybody to sign an NDA. So... Fuck. If they signed an NDA, that was on their own volition. NDAs are also worthless. They don't actually protect against malpractice. So if you do something illegal, you can't get somebody to stay silent with an NDA. So they can't just gag you from saying anything. If somebody's committed a crime, you sign an NDA saying you won't expose the crime. That's not legally binding. So, if they wanted to sue him for malpractice or speak out against malpractice, they can do that.
are fraudulent. They're invalid. They are voided because the patients were coerced, either financially or being legally threatened, into signing the NDAs. And, you know, most people...
Wait, that was a woman. What is she? Trans?
I think that's just a fucking stupid Instagram post, Dodo. Thanks.
People are just, you know, happy to be over with it. They either want their money back, they don't want anything to do with it. They're scared to death of the guy. They don't understand the legal system. And that works for pretty much every single person that he's ever botched. And, you know, these plastic surgeons have systems in place to abuse, manipulate, gaslight, essentially torture these patients, their patients, after they botch them. The system is set up to prevent people like me, and it takes, pretty much a crazy lunatic with their own platform and business to stand up for himself. Most of...
Frank is fucking retarded.
Sue the United States government for making us short through the poisoning of the food supply and inadequate dietary guidelines.
We are the generation of humans that have had the highest average height in all of human history. So, that makes no sense.
I am ordaining myself the, general of this army of manlets, because in my Italian DNA, the Romans, the short guys, conquered all of Europe, and I don't see why we can't do it again. There are more of us than them.
I think Frank's getting a lot of gray hairs, unless that's just the lighting.
There are far more short guys than the tall guys or whoever is in control of society, so yeah, I think...
Like, everything is mostly going to follow just a bell curve. So the average is going to be, like, what, 5'9"? Or it's like either it's like around 5'8", 5'9" for men. Like, what is he talking about? Like this guy doesn't understand statistics, so, like, most people are going to be in the middle, and then... there's going to be very few very tall people and very few very short people. Like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, yeah, you generally don't see everybody being over 6 foot tall. And even when you look at, like, people where, like, populations where the average height is taller, like, I think there's some countries where the average height is, like, 6'1" or 6'2" or something. It still follows a bell curve. So that's just the average. People who are like 6'7" or something, or 6'8", they're going to be the outliers that are like, you know, the top 2%. And then there's going to be a bunch of dudes who are like, you know, 5'8", 5'10", and they're going to be the bottom like 2%. It's just a bell curve, you fucking idiot.
I think this is the first...
Like it's weird how he's focusing on height too. Height is like one of the most definitively inheritable traits. It's not influenced that much by nutrition. It's mostly heritability.
Step. Manlets versus the United States of America, or it could be all men under 5'10" versus the United States of America. So, I don't know, I guess it's a first step, right? Unironically,
he might have BPD, wouldn't surprise me.
Factually, it would be a factually correct lawsuit. The highest quality chicken and rice meal ever made.
That looks gross as shit.
Using the rotisserie chicken from Frankie's Strange Meat, corn and soy free, pasture raised, beautifully cooked chicken breast with the skin on. Then we have some organic white basmati rice cooked in glass bottle mineral water, and organic white Hannah sweet potatoes sauteed in coconut oil. And what's crazy to me is how much meat is on this 2.5 pound.
That looks so fucking disgusting.
Bird. That's all the dark meat that's going to
be. And like, he wonders why he doesn't get any views, and he just like uploads the most gross, disgusting shit to his channel. Well, that's very nice and retarded.
Imposter candidates, particularly North Koreans, like posing as like people that they're not. So one of the tests that we do is trying to get them to say Kim Jong-un is a fat ugly pig. Could you say that for me? Sorry, no, Kim Jong-un, you know, the leader of North Korea. Can you say it?
Good afternoon, Michael. How are you today?
That's fucking hilarious. They don't even have permission to say that when they're trying to get like a fake job.
Hi, nice to meet you. Hello. Hi, nice to meet you.
And would you now or in the future require a sponsorship?
I'm a U.S. citizen.
You tell people North Koreans are working for American companies. And then the first question is, how's that possible?
From our perspective, it likely is thousands of IT workers who are looking for jobs in the United States. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars going towards North Korea.
I see them in governments. I see them in defense contractors. I see them at banking institutions. These IT workers are everywhere.
Have you seen the jobs that I've supposedly worked and how much money they've made? But yeah, here I am. Whole life is just took.
They would schedule up interviews and all I had to do was just show up and then you get one of those remote laptops sent to you. There's no way I'm the only guy doing this.
Over the last several years, a crop of seemingly perfect job applicants has flooded American companies. But they aren't who they claim to be. They're undercover North Korean operatives. Dispatched by their government, they use stolen identities and fabricated resumes to blast out applications to US-based companies, with the goal of getting hired. Once they do, they pay Americans to set up their company laptops, attend meetings, and open bank accounts. After collecting their paychecks, the IT workers funnel the money back to Kim Jong-un's regime, around $800 million a year by recent estimates. US officials say the money helps fund North Korea's nuclear program, and warn that some workers have also hacked their employers.
We've seen massive tech layoffs. We've seen all kinds of coders being put on the marketplace, and the North Koreans are getting jobs. I don't really fully understand how that's possible, except when I think about the fact that they've industrialized the whole process of getting hired.
It's estimated that North Korea has dispatched thousands of high-skilled workers to earn jobs with Western companies. And for the last year, the Journal has been investigating one small team of these workers from the inside. We obtained a trove of hacked data from their computers that was sitting in an online archive. It allowed us to see their browser history, emails, stolen identities, and even screen recordings from their meetings. Using this data, we were able to map out exactly how the team operates. A person using the codename Eagle Vision acts as the team leader. In videos, we can see 3 different men posing as the tech workers under 3 fake or stolen identities: Lucas Lee, Patrick New, and Michael Brown. Though their digital footprint makes it clear they're operating many other aliases as well. They use this private Discord server to coordinate the creation of resumes, cover letters, and other hiring materials for the various applicant aliases they're utilizing. To prepare for interviews, they assemble Google Docs like this one, which shows them getting ready for conversations with 4 different companies using 3 different applicants' names. They also do other homework, like looking up how to pronounce their cover names.
So these IT workers are following the North Korean IT worker playbook to a T. So the IT working team, like the composition of them is going to vary. You're going to have a boss. You might have someone that's better at interviews, where those people are strictly 15 interviews a day. You have people that work on resumes. You have people that actually do the job. There's many different roles. It all depends on who's going to be what.
In just over 3 months, this small team applied for jobs at more than 1,000 companies. A snapshot of Eagle Vision's Google Calendar from January 2025 reveals what appears to be 22 job interviews using at least 7 identities, and that's just 1 week. Our investigation found the team was hired for at least 9 jobs across companies in the US and the UK. The North Korean team often records its members, possibly for training or surveillance purposes, as they conduct meetings and job interviews. This screen recording shows how they used AI to cheat their way into companies. Before an interview begins, we can see an IT worker teeing up ChatGPT and asking it for help answering questions related to a software engineering role.
Hello. Hi. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Do you have any experience with lambdas?
Yeah, of course.
The worker copies the interviewer's question from a transcription tool, pastes it into ChatGPT, and then reads the response verbatim.
I've used it for handling background tasks and triggering workflows and processing API requests in a cost-efficient way.
We tracked Eagle Vision down on the messaging app Telegram.
That's incredibly lazy.
He told us we had the wrong person and declined our request for an interview.
Once they have the job, then they have to get their work computer. The companies typically will send you a laptop that you're going to be working on. It's your corporate laptop. It's locked down, secure, all this stuff. If they were sending that device to Pyongyang, that would raise red flags. But if they send it to, say, Phoenix, Arizona, not so weird. So where do they send the laptop? They need
Even now, crazy. Yeah, I've seen this. I'm not gonna watch the whole thing because I'm worried it's like copywritten shit. But yeah, this is one of the best Warhammer 40K Space Marines, like short film movie things. Thanks to Even Now.
a partner within the United States that can receive those laptops.
Our teams so far have arrested or charged 39 individuals, both IT workers and US persons who enable the IT worker ecosystem to happen.
The biggest laptop farm we've uncovered to date had about 100. So even if every laptop farm has dozens, we're talking about thousands of Americans would have to be involved for this to function.
It's important to note too that some of those folks are witting. Some of those folks know that they are circumventing US law. They know that they are, at the very minimum, circumventing policy within those organizations. Now, there's many people who also don't. They're unwitting.
If I'm arrested, what would I be arrested for? All I did was handle a job that was in my name and somebody else was coding for me. The illegal parts, I don't want to associate with it. Like, that's just not me.
Derek Goon has spent the past several years working as a facilitator for Eagle Vision. When we tracked Derek down, he said he was paid to run a laptop out of his home in rural Ohio. But he told us he didn't know that Eagle Vision was North Korean.
Here we go.
He says that.
Here's one.
Hello, Diddy. This is Eagle's client. Please check the laptop. Laptop is offline.
Wouldn't it be more accurate to say steroids are anti-aging since it maintains high T levels, prevents sarcopenia, stuff like that? Well, if you're talking about testosterone specifically and like testosterone replacement therapy, yeah, that would be anti-aging. You're at least preventing some of the effects of aging, like decreased androgens, lower like sarcopenia, decreased muscle mass, like lower libido, like loss of bone mineral density, connective tissue strength. Like people on test also tend to have lower visceral body fat. They're more active. It's cardioprotective as well. So, like, it keeps you kind of more youthful. Doesn't necessarily extend, like, and like, there is evidence of this. It does reduce all-cause mortality risk. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to live, like, past what a human could otherwise live. Like, you know, I think it's been estimated the maximum human lifespan is roughly 120 years. You're not going to live to 130 or 140 just because you take test. It doesn't work that way. But yeah, you have a biological clock where you are going to die at a certain time. But physically, you will be in like a younger, more youthful state when you die. Now, if you're blasting fucking steroids to the moon and you're taking extremely like dangerous compounds like, you know, tren, methyl test, anadrol, so like steroids that are particularly bad for you in high doses, consistently and persistently, like, yeah, that'll age you faster. But especially when you combine it again with like just poor lifestyle practices. So you don't eat well, you eat a lot of meat and animal products, also like just recreational drug use, stuff like that. That'll really fuck you up. Combining steroids with like bad lifestyle and recreational drugs, but yeah, when you're talking about like testosterone replacement therapy specifically, or just HRT, like, you know, replacing growth hormone or using some other like you know, non-natural androgens, quote unquote, like taking like small doses of nandrolone for like joint health, yeah, that would prevent like the effects of aging.
I actually sent you the wrong link. Here's the actual link I meant to send you. This is insane. At first, I thought it was AI, but it's real.
Restricted video not available in my country. That's unfortunate, but thank you even though.
Because Derek has a programming background, Eagle Vision's team sometimes apply.
Would guess that most negatives associated with testosterone is due to lifestyle choices like eating too much food, unhealthy shit. Most of the crap that you hear about testosterone is literally just a complete made-up bullshit falsehood. Like, for the longest time, there's this myth being spread around that it will make you get blood clots and trigger heart attacks or strokes. That's completely and utterly untrue, no evidence whatsoever. Increases prostate cancer risk, completely untrue, no evidence for that whatsoever. In fact, it actually prevents against prostate cancer. It also protects against brain cancer. That's actually being definitively proven as well. So a lot of the stuff that you hear about testosterone being bad for you, it's literally made up stupid bullshit by people who literally made shit up. The blood clotting risk thing, that, like, I don't even know where the fuck that even originated from. There's no association with RBC or hematocrit and blood clotting risk. There's actually a population of people in that live in high altitude in Peru. I think they live at 15,000 feet. They have an average hematocrit of nearly 70. Where the normal range is usually below 50. But yeah, in that area of Peru where they live at 15,000 feet, they have an average hematocrit of nearly 70. I think it's like 68 or 69. They actually have lower clotting factor than the average American. So there's no association whatsoever between secondary erythrocytosis and clotting risk. Where that clotting bullshit came from was from people who have polycythemia vera, which is primary polycythemia. And it's basically like a bone marrow dysfunction where it just makes your blood clot very easily. But it has nothing to do with secondary erythrocytosis. There's just no evidence whatsoever that elevated hematocrit increases stroke or heart attack risk or thrombosis. They just made it up. So that's being debunked. Same with the prostate cancer stuff. It's actually men with lower testosterone levels that tend to have higher risk of prostate cancer. So testosterone is actually protective against prostate cancer. It's not even associated with benign prostatic hyperplasia. So, all the myths around testosterone being bad for you, it's literally made up nonsense. That's just where it comes from. I guess it's like this ideological disposition that a lot of people have where testosterone is just bad. Being masculine is bad for whatever fucking reason. But yeah. Viva Mao, sheesh, try again.
Do the view.
Just scoop your hand under the fucking tentacles, you retard. Maybe if you didn't fuck with the octopus, that wouldn't have happened. That just seems fake to me, honestly. Thanks, Ethan, now.
Applies for jobs under his real name, and then he shows up for the interviews himself. If he gets the job, Derek says he runs the laptop and attends meetings.
Which effect does tea have on telomeres? I have no fucking idea. Tea makes you more prone to low immune efficiency, right? I don't know. I haven't looked into it.
While Eagle Vision's team does the work behind the scenes. Then they split the salary.
They would schedule up interviews, and then I'd sit and do these interviews with.
I remember when you went on Destiny's stream to complain about your divorcee and said that.
Is that why my heart feels amazing on TRT? I haven't even had a heavy heartbeat since even with high dose nicotine. Some people are affected by nicotine way more than others. I've tested my blood pressure on nicotine, and a lot of people have, I don't know if I'd say a lot, but just anecdotally, I've seen, a fair number of people say they have substantive blood pressure increases on nicotine. I haven't noticed anything. There's literally no difference. I also haven't seen it affect my heart rate either. You'll see similar things with caffeine. Some people get really huge heart rate increases from caffeine. Some people don't. Just depends on your sensitivity to it. But yeah, TRT is cardioprotective. It lowers inflammatory markers. It lowers ApoB and ApoA. So it promotes beneficial lipid changes, and it also improves endothelial function.
With them, all I had to do was just show up and, land the job. Then you get one of those remote laptops sent to you. It's not any more difficult process than that. It's a remote job. I get to live more free, I guess.
If you're on testosterone, you don't have it doesn't matter if you have hypogonadism. You're replacing the testosterone you're on. So what do you mean confounding factors? That makes no fucking sense.
I can go to school full time and then still carry this out. You know, it alleviated a lot of stress for me.
Times are rough right now, so there's always going to be someone who needs cash, so they can use money as an
Mikhaila doing tillers for my pregnant mama. She also has younger videos, but I don't know if I should send
We're
it.
having children later this year, hopefully. Any advice for us men? What can we do? That's nice. So I would say try to help lower stress. And remember that this is a season, like we talked about earlier. This is not going to last for very long. It's 9-ish months. And there's the postpartum period. It's not over when you have the baby.
Monkeys have fucking babies. It's not that hard. Get over yourself. Women, especially pregnant women, are the most entitled fucking cunts on the planet. You're not special. You're not going through anything fucking difficult. The whole reason you want children in the first place is so that you don't have to fucking work. So, like, it's just fucking retarded.
The first 3 months are gnarly, and it's really 6 months, but the first 3 months are just total write-off. That woman is still basically pregnant with a baby on the outside. It's real, you know. It's...
Oh, get the fuck over yourself. She doesn't even raise her own kids. She has 2 fucking nannies
What
that
are your
work for her. Fucking joke.
thoughts on the best diet for children? Okay, here's a spicy one. This isn't that spicy. This is what I'm doing for all my children. So they start with meat. They go breast milk, and eventually they start with meat.
Yes, like one of the worst foods you can eat.
Feeding a baby meat is a little bit tricky. There's some gagging that goes on, and that happens with...
Yes, the natural food that humans are supposed to eat, babies despise, and they choke and gag on it.
any food you give them, that some babies are gaggier than other babies. But I've done meat with Scarlett. I did meat with Scarlett for the first 3 years. So people reach out sometimes with kids that have autoimmune disorders at two, and they go, can I do the lion diet? Yeah, you can do only meat. You can introduce foods really slowly for little kids. So breast milk, then we do meat. I do meat until 2.5 or 3 by itself. Beef, primarily.
Yeah, the worst type of meat you can eat.
And then eventually some fish and some chicken, but primarily fatty beef. And
yeah, that's the worst food you can possibly eat. You're just setting them up for heart disease, cancer, diabetes.
And research has shown that kids that
red meat causes heart disease, cancer, diabetes.
Start with meat, have a larger head circumference in a good way, are...
No, that's not true. She's talking about research on malnourished African kids. So when you look at these shithole, poor, broke fucking countries where nobody can get any nutrition because they're literally going through famine and starving and shit, and they have rainy and dry seasons. So for a lot of the year, they can't even, grow any crops. So they're in this, weird famine situation for half the year. In these broke countries where maybe they'll be able to get rice... when you feed these kids food, like you give them anything, which could include red meat, they develop better. Big surprise. Feeding a kid, maybe a fucking cup of rice a day versus giving them a balanced diet, yes, they're going to grow better and have a bigger head circumference just because they're getting more nutrition. That has nothing to do with red meat in particular causing children to grow better.
Bigger. I'll try to remember to link that study below, or you can Google it. But meat as a first food is amazing. In the 90s, they were giving everybody iron fortified cereal because cereal doesn't have iron in it. I don't know.
It does. Grains do in fact have iron. By the way, I'm eating soy chunks. Soy chunks is basically the same thing as TVP, textured vegetable protein. What it is it's soy with all the fat removed. You can look at the iron content in it. I think it's Yeah, it's like 39% of the daily value per 40 grams. And a 40-gram serving's tiny. So if you have a 100-gram serving, which gives you 50 grams protein, and that would also have 300 calories, you're getting 50% of your RDA for iron, which I think would total... Yeah, I think that totals about 15 grams of iron. So... Or sorry, is it milligram? Yeah, no, it would be grams. So yeah, TVP, extremely high in fucking iron.
What marketing genius came up with that? But don't do that. Do meat. And then amylase levels.
Yeah, the the iron in meat is it's a pro-oxidant. So it triggers inflammation and cancer.
What was the thing you used to have in your life that got rid of you?
Is an enzyme that helps break down starches. Those levels don't even reach peak adult levels until about 2.5. You guys can double check those numbers.
So guess what? Breast milk has sugars in them. Simple sugars. So why would you expect a infant to have amylase producing enzymes in their mouth to any substantive extent when they're feeding off of breast milk, which has simple sugars in it, like glucose, galactose?
But it's about 2.5. So you do not need to rush into giving your kids starches at all until about that age, because they're not even ready for it. So I do meat for the first 3 years.
This is like actually fucking retarded.
I wouldn't be this strict, except...
Like, have you ever heard of fruit?
Thoughts on finasteride? Is post-finasteride syndrome actually a thing?
It appears to be. Blocking DHT is not a good idea. DHT has a ton of benefits, especially in the brain. So, it does a lot throughout your entire body. It controls sexual function, sexual interest, penis sensitivity, orgasm quality. So if you have low DHT, you're probably going to have like worse orgasms. It's important for nervous system function. And if you have low DHT, basically the electrical signals that are sent to your muscles don't work as well. And in the brain, it's responsible for a lot of like feel-good chemicals like dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. And what else? It also has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties too. So it's cardioprotective. It helps nitric oxide formation. So blocking DHT is just generally not a good idea. I know there's people who are paranoid about hair loss, but men go bald. Like, it's fine. Like blocking DHT to prevent baldness, it's entirely a cosmetic choice. It has absolutely zero health benefits and potentially many health drawbacks, particularly for sexual function and mental health. That's why you do see a lot of dudes who end up getting depression and mood issues and sexual dysfunction when they hop on something like finasteride, which especially at higher doses, it basically brings your DHT to like near zero. So if you care more about your hair than your overall well-being, then I guess do that, but I wouldn't recommend blocking DHT, especially systemically. If you're worried about your hair, the best strategy to use would be to use topical dutasteride. Dutasteride 1, it blocks the specific type of DHT that's more responsible for hair loss. And because it's topical and on your scalp, it's not going to go systemic like oral finasteride will. So you're just blocking DHT at the scalp. So that's a better strategy if you care about your hair and your health. I would just say, fuck it. Why even bother going through the expense and the inconvenience? But if that's what you want to do, then, you know, and it's not that big of a deal for you, then do that. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend blocking DHT.
Can y'all in chat help me out? I'm trying to identify something to make Richard's life better, like the way it used to be. There was something and now there is no longer that thing. He needs that thing in his life.
Hair Cafe would disagree with you on your anti-finasteride propaganda. You should debate him on it so he can clap your N-word cheeks. What's the figure? Like 1% or something of men complain about post-finasteride syndrome. It's a pretty small percentage. I know there's some debate over whether or not it's real. Like, just because of the prevalence of it, like, I don't think so. It probably is real. And, like, again, your body probably makes it for a reason, and we know about all the functions it has. Just because, in general, there's a lot of people who don't notice any problems from it, it doesn't mean it's, like, a good idea to just block DHT systemically. Again, your body probably makes it for a reason. And we know what it does. It has a lot of benefits. I wouldn't be opposed to debating him on the topic. We can
You
do
don't seem to understand that nigger hair doesn't look good. You can either have an afro, dreads, or very short hair or bald. So it doesn't matter much for you because afro and dreads are already worse options than bald. But
Well,
for non-niggers it matters.
I guess I'm lucky then. Don't have to worry about that shit. Thanks, 21st.
For my history with autoimmunity, my family's history with autoimmunity, and
She doesn't have autoimmune problems. She's just a hypochondriac.
we don't exactly know why we're sensitive. Maybe genetic sensitivity to mold causing autoimmune problems, but I do not
She's making this horseshit up.
want that for my kids.
Yeah, she's just a fucking idiot. Well, Mikhaila Peterson's just a dumb bitch.
Enticement, but also they like them interesting. And I feel like any facilitator I've ever seen, I think they all are very, very weird and unique and maybe a little bit more manipulatable.
I dropped out of high school and I started my own business. It was like a Bitcoin virtual currency exchange for like video game gold and stuff like that. I had an addiction to heroin back in like 2013. Get thrown in jail 3 or 4 times. Like right now, it's kind of difficult to get some like employment. I mean, I've been talking to these guys since like 2020, really. I kept getting bugged by people through Telegram, but he's like, hey, I want you to talk with this guy. I think he's gonna end up being able to help you out, given your situations and stuff. At first, like I thought, like he said he was from Brazil in the very beginning. And you're like, I'm leery about it at first, but you know, after talking for a little bit back and forth, I was like, yeah, you know what, let's give it a shot. Like lo and behold, like it ended up actually doing pretty good. I mean, I've had a passive income for the last 1.5 years now. In a broader perspective, I'm like, how big is this really? Because I mean, I think it could be a lot larger than I thought.
North Korean IT workers are scattered across the globe. One report estimated there were 1,600 to 3,000 total in 2025, with a majority based in China, where they rely heavily on the country's infrastructure, financial institutions, and facilitators to carry out this fraudulent work.
The actual workers operate in jurisdictions where the U.S. can't touch them. So they're working out of North Korea, or they're working out of China, or they're working out of Russia. These are countries that if the FBI says, hey, we've identified some criminals there, we just send them over to the U.S., they will say no.
We traced an IP address tied to Eagle Vision's team to Shenyang, one of the Chinese cities that's become a hub for these IT workers, in part for its proximity to the North Korean border.
One of the things that makes this such an interesting story is North Korea is like incredibly innovative. Their hustle, it just seems to know no end. The sanctions have been around for so long that it's easy to forget that North Korea once had an economy that interacted with the rest of the world. And over the last decade, North Korea has shown its creativity in focusing on ways of getting money into the country. North Korea's entrance into the world as a hacking superpower basically started not for money, but started with
Anti-Invisalign and finest stride but pro boulder known. What a fucking retard. We already researched Invisalign on stream and you saw there was literally not a shred of evidence for your claims. Not a shred. The finasteride shit is the same. Shut up already.
That's nice. If you want to block your DHT, go ahead. I don't care. Thanks, dude.
The Sony cyber attack, where they were upset about a film being released. Shortly after that, North Korea pivoted to making money. There's the Bank of Bangladesh hack, where North Korea...
Yeah, honey is not vegan. It's an animal product. Already taken UGL set and said I'm going to clinic but want it cheaper. It's only $20 from the pharmacy. You're getting testosterone vials for $20 from the pharmacy?
Stole $1 billion, but they stole it on the traditional financial system. And a lot of that money got clawed back. After that hack, they pivot and they start getting an interest in cryptocurrency, and crypto hacking started taking off. Then COVID happens.
Yeah, I'm still in Canada.
Everybody moves to remote work. The North Koreans sensed an opportunity. If you're never showing up at the headquarters, maybe you don't have to be who you say you are. Maybe there's an opportunity to pretend you're somebody who's legitimately employable, get a job, get a paycheck, get a six-figure paycheck, it's a coding job, you know. They started focusing on getting into crypto companies and trying to use their position as workers there to undermine the products and to steal money from them. And I think at one point they were like, hey, we're getting paychecks for doing this. Like, why don't we just do this everywhere?
The North Korean regime...
That's the price if my doctor prescribes. Oh, so is it partially covered by insurance? Is that why it would be so cheap?
...did not respond to our requests for comment. But in early August, a foreign ministry spokesperson dismissed allegations from the international community regarding...
Is the lead singer natty or not?
Say probably natty. Thanks, Jessica.
...regarding the IT worker scheme as false information devoid of credibility.
One of the things that's remarkable about this scam to me is that a lot of the victims are just regular Americans who have no idea that even now they're being victimized. They're the people whose identities are stolen to perpetuate this fraud.
Good afternoon. Michael Brown, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Brown. I'm calling because you guys actually supposedly had me working for you guys. My identity was apparently used.
Because I'm not the HR department, I can only give you very basic information.
What basic information are you able to give me?
I'm only able to confirm, like, employment dates.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Well, how much liability can you really get if the person who's calling is asking for his own personal information? But I get it too, cause hey, yeah, it's not like you in person. You're here in person, so you can be anybody saying you're the real Michael Brown. Hell, hey, that's why we're here today.
We found Michael's identity for sale on Telegram, a messaging platform Ecovision uses to find new aliases, though Telegram says it forbids the sale of private data. North Korea has developed strategies for stealing identities at scale. This document, found on the computer of a different cell of North Korean IT workers, offers guidance on how to acquire stolen identities. The document instructs workers to purchase an identity from a website that sells stolen personal data, and utilize several tools, including E-Verify, a US government website, to check if the stolen credentials will pass background checks. Finally, use the credentials to purchase a driver's license from a company called Trust ID Card, which added a notice to its website after we reached out to say it only makes souvenirs.
I was informed my identity was being used when I went to the Department of Labor to check on unemployment. The lady just so happened to see that I had multiple jobs around about the same time in completely different states. So it was more like, hey, are you working all these places? And I'm like, no, I've been working for the same place for the past 2 years. How you been?
Good, how you been?
That's my investigator right here.
11 states.
Yep.
Okay.
I talk. It's magic. I can teleport.
So those are all of your Georgia, right?
Mm-hmm.
California, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, North Carolina, Texas, and Tennessee.
She gave me the paperwork, and I seen all these jobs that I had no clue about, and I'm just like, oh. So I remember making a joke with her like, hey, at least my Social Security is gonna be nice.
You ladies have a good one. Hopefully y'all don't have to see me again.
The Department of Labor's records showed Michael working at 9 different companies he said he's never heard of, amounting to $100,000 in income he said he didn't receive. While it's unclear whether North Korean IT workers were behind these jobs, we found evidence of them using Michael's identity to work at 2 other companies.
Tim, I just wanted to introduce you to Michael Brown as well. We're getting a chance to chat, and Mike.
This guy's name's Michael Brown.
Michael's an incredible gentleman, and we've gone through his background as well. And I think this is a really great conversation for both of you to have in regards to what you need for your team.
In early 2025, father and son Tim and Charlie Richardson worked with a recruiter to hire a software developer for their startup, Visual PT.
The recruiter had told us that his English wasn't good, but once you reviewed his code...
Go challenge Hair Cafe to a debate right away, stupid useless fucking nigger. Comment on his latest video if you don't have his Instagram, dipshit.
I'll look into finasteride more and DHT, and then I'll see if it's worth debating. Thanks, 21st.
There was a sense like, hey, this guy might be our guy.
Yeah, I'll send you that link right now, and take your time with the research, but
not too much time.
Hopefully in the next 2 or 3 days, you'll have fully understood the problem.
When we saw that, I was like, okay, well, this guy Musa, the recruiter, sent us a perfect candidate.
That is one of the ways that this has also grown over time, is the aggregation of a lot of these applicants into some of these third-party companies who specialize in recruiting IT talent.
They serve as a force multiplier. Like, you can submit one application and then this company will send them for hundreds of open jobs, and so that makes it easier. And the companies work on volume, so they're more interested in placing individuals rather than vetting them.
We've seen this at governments, we've seen this at our government. They got in because a third-party service, they didn't do their due diligence and they hired an IT worker.
One final question, Michael, do you have any, how's your status for work in the United States? Citizen, okay, perfect, that helps a lot.
I'll be darned.
So this is what I was telling you, he seemed legit because his responses were quick enough.
The Richardsons didn't find out that the contractor they'd hired was misrepresenting himself until we reached out to them for an interview.
My mind is blown right now. My sense that the resume was probably also false. The interview was false.
Initially, I thought maybe he was just lazy or just sloppy, and now I realize there was malintent. These people are out there apparently feeling like they can do this with no repercussions, no consequences.
It affects your livelihood. Applying for jobs, applying for loans, applying for a house, a car, anything that requires my social is pretty much gonna be an issue for me. So this is Voya Financial, a DT Consulting 401k plan, summary plan description. Girl, they opened up a 401.
Fuck would I move to Egypt just to get steroids over the counter? That's like the dumbest fucking idea imaginable. There's other countries where you can buy steroids over the counter. I know in Greece, steroids aren't, or testosterone at least, it's not a prescription medication, so you can just go to the pharmacy and buy it. Like, why would I move to a shithole fucking garbage Muslim country just to buy steroids over the counter when I can get them here just fine?
Hey, my name and all, like, bro, that is wild.
It turns out, while fake Michael Brown was working for a DT Consulting, he was contracted out to another company, Amazon.
I don't think most people have a neurodivergence or gut/immune issues. I think they looked up trends on TikTok and used that as a diagnosis for being a hypochondriac asshole. Dealing with them is worse than vegans. What do you think? Am I being an asshole?
Most people who are claiming they have autism are like women, and they really just have like bipolar disorder or narcissism or something like that. And yeah, most people don't have gut or autoimmune issues. They're just hypochondriacs. Thanks, hot take.
Amazon told us more than 2,900 suspected North Korean operatives have been blocked from joining the company since April 2024. The company said it has never directly hired a North Korean IT worker. In rare cases where a third-party contractor's employee used a fraudulent identity, Amazon said it worked with the agency to remove them.
It is mind-blowing. Have you seen this man's resume? Oh my God, have you seen the jobs that I've supposedly worked and the little amount of time they work and how much money they've made? But yeah, here I am. Whole life is just, somebody else is living like me right now.
We've seen some IT workers who make upwards of $300,000 a year. The Treasury Department identified that in some cases up to 90% of their income actually goes back to the regime. The individuals themselves are not making a lot of money, but in aggregate, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars going towards North Korea's WMD and missile development programs. Their goal is to avoid detection when they get the money out of the country.
The money earned through this scam typically follows a complicated and multi-step journey back to North Korea, often involving an assortment of foreign bank accounts, couriers, crypto transactions, and money launderers.
Cryptocurrency is one of the best ways for actors to move money in general. So that's an avenue that the North Koreans recognize as a lower risk way to transit countries who would normally look to disrupt the movement of those funds.
They want crypto, so like we'd send them like $600 in crypto and I'd keep the rest. And it's always the same amount, same salary. This one's a $75K a year salary.
Yeah, thanks for the membership, dude.
My cut is 50%. I mean, yeah, they're pushing a lot of money. Like it's a pretty big operation for what I've seen.
Eagle Vision's browser history led us to a cryptocurrency wallet he was using to send and receive payments. We traced where the money moved and found that Eagle Vision was just one node in a vast North Korean financial network, which includes wallets associated with an $11 million crypto heist, as well as IT workers who sent payments through a platform used to collect money for the regime. Cybersecurity researchers traced some of these payments to Ryonbong, a company sanctioned by the US for its role in Pyongyang's weapons program.
Now that they have this cash, they could spend it on virtually anything. The US government does like to point out that they're using it to fund their nuclear program, but it could be used for any purpose.
Morning, Patrick.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Doing a little bit better.
The same worker who was hired by Visual PT and Amazon under Michael Brown's identity also worked under a different name at a British tech company called Subly.
If you're gonna have a sick day, you need to tell us before 9 a.m. because we need to shift everything.
Yeah.
Not good, man. Yeah, also, I'm still not fully confident about like your performance. I know you have the expertise, but I am missing all the kind of like communication skills.
This is also the same people that are working 18, 20 hours a day. You also have to factor in the human element of like, they're tired. You know, these guys are working around the clock and using AI and all these scripting, but also they're humans too, and everyone makes an error.
In many ways, the IT workers themselves are victims of the regime because they're being forced to work multiple jobs in a place they can't leave. And if they do try to leave or defect, their families are threatened. They're basically slave labor for the regime to generate money.
These guys are picked up at ages 7, 8 years old. If you have a high aptitude for science, math, problem-solving skills, you're gonna get pulled in at that early of an age. So by the time these guys are 18 years old, they've had cyber training, they're completely schooled, they've been vetted. The more privileged IT workers, like what we see them living a little bit better life, having a steak dinner at times, whereas you have more of the general use IT workers where there's 6 of them crammed in one room.
We've heard that sometimes they're great employees, and often they're not. Sometimes they're terrible employees, and the whole scam seems to be just to get like a couple of weeks' paycheck and then move on to the next victim. I mean, over the past year, this has become one of the top 3 or 4 cyber issues in the United States. So people are paying attention to it. They're finding these workers more quickly than they were.
Where are you based? I live in Pendens.
Where are you based? All right, getting blindsided.
What's the weather like now? It's really cold, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I feel like the recruiter's getting suspicious now. He's like, where are you at? And then he's like, what's the weather like? So now he's like, now I feel like he's figuring it out.
Hiring teams have started looking for red flags to identify fake applicants.
Is it cold? What's the temperature? Roughly. Yeah.
And then this panic. What is the weather like? And
is it cold? Is it warm? What's the temperature right now?
This is pretty funny.
It's really cold. Yeah, about 10 degrees Celsius. Yeah.
See, the biggest trend is now trust but verify. If we're all going to be working remote, which is perfectly fine, I need to make sure that the remote worker is who they say they are. A lot more verification is going on across the board, and I think it is hurting their operations, but they don't just pack up and go home. It's going to be how do they adapt, and then how do we adapt against that?
Your avatar is like kind of weird. Like, are you using something to like change your camera view?
On LinkedIn, you would see these videos of these North Koreans conducting interviews, but it was like an AI avatar. It wasn't a real North Korean. People would be conducting interviews and they'd realize that there's something wrong with this employee.
Getting North Koreans' faces off camera is huge for them. Next year, we will be talking about where did all the IT workers go? I can't find them anymore. So the years of us being able to see the IT worker on camera, they might go away.
As their face swapping techniques have improved, making them harder to detect, they're developing new methods to scale their operation, like subcontracting the actual IT work.
This is a huge evolution. They're going to get the job and then immediately repost the job for a smaller price and just get a butt and a seat. They're acting as middlemen. We saw one North Korean had subcontracted at work to someone in the Middle East. It was a $5,000 job, and the facilitator that did the actual work got $500.
One tactic that's helped them to both escape scrutiny and increase capacity is to train more facilitators to show up for the interviews. Here's the recruiting pitch from one North Korean worker we spoke to.
Our development very skilled, but this language gap sometimes makes it harder for us to win new projects. That's why we are looking for a floating list speaker to test them in, during the interviews.
They're looking for more people like Derek. In the past, Derek interviewed for jobs as Derek Lee, his real first and middle name, but sometimes he uses fake names assigned to him by the IT worker team. He also said EagleVision has asked him for help recruiting more facilitators.
Yeah, he asked me, and he's like, throw you like a, 500.
Buddy, Bricks is dead. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Literally all the Bricks nations hate each other and are going fucking bankrupt. Russia is completely dead economically. What was the other one? Like Venezuela, like that's just done. Like America owns their oil now. Yeah, Brazil is just a fucking shithole. China is not doing well economically, and who knows if they're ever going to invade Taiwan. Like, if they do, it'd just completely backfire on them. But like either way, they're going to be broke because they're communist horse shit. Like, BRICS is a complete joke.
$100 or something if you find me somebody. And I was like, yeah, I could probably find one or two people.
But over the months that we've been in touch with Derek, he's begun to accept that he's been roped into a North Korean employment scheme.
Well, when I mentioned something, I was like, yo, dude, you in North Korea or something like that? He got really pissed off at me when I said that. He says, no, why would you even think that? And I was like, well, because I got some sources that say you were.
Recently, Derek found out that EagleVision has been using his identity without his permission. A 1099 form he received from Upwork showed nearly $100,000 in freelance income he thinks went to the North Koreans.
He's been fucking me over. My moral compass is starting to lean more towards like, dude, these guys are in a shadier business than I thought. I mean, how the f do I get involved in shit like this, man?
Hello, Derek. How are you?
Hello? Yes, this is Derek.
Derek sent a few additional screen recordings from the laptop he ran for EagleVision, including one where a worker poses as him and uses an AI tool to change his appearance.
Where are you based out of, Derek?
Ohio. I'm based in
Ohio.
Nice.
The Journal reached out to the nearly 300 companies, recruiters, and hiring managers appearing in this documentary. Many did not respond, declined our request for comment, or denied knowingly hiring anyone using a stolen or fake identity. Others said they moved quickly to root out bad actors or illegal activity, and many mentioned taking steps to avoid these issues in the future. One company we found to have employed an IT worker told us they had already cooperated with an FBI investigation into the issue.
When pinning front delts, do you find the acromion process like side delts and just move it to the front? Can't find any videos. You just inject it into your shoulder, dude. There's plenty of spots on your shoulder. Like, just pin it there. Just don't try to, just try to avoid the veins in your delts if you're lean.
We're under no grand illusion that we're going to arrest our way out of this problem. Like, law enforcement action alone is not the solution here. It is part of the solution. The only way to get out of this problem, though, is to pair those law enforcement actions with corporate hiring practices, corporate vetting practices, industry flagging this to corporations to help prevent this as well, corporations flagging it to the US government.
Meanwhile, these North Korean workers are moving into other kinds of work, like civil engineering, and they're branching out to companies across the globe.
Companies are willingly giving usernames and passwords, keys to these workers to get into their networks. Now, right now, primarily, we've seen this as a revenue generation issue. The biggest concern we have is that this can quickly pivot into an espionage issue. Theft of intellectual property, potential sabotage when you're working in critical networks, supporting critical infrastructure.
Well, now they're doing a lot more of that intellectual property theft, data extortion, things like that. So I see them in governments, I see them in defense contractors, I see them at banking institutions. What keeps me up at night is that these IT workers are everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. And at a moment's notice, if Kim Jong-un gives the word, he can have them try to blow it up from the inside all at the same time.
Car keys. I've seen them. Ah, I know where they are. Until you was no help at all.
Michael received a letter in October 2025 informing him he was a victim in an identity theft case that involved the production of fake IDs. But he struggled.
I don't know why you pinned your quad, and I don't know why the fuck you did that with a 19-gauge needle. You have to be a fucking retard.
To access resources and sort out how widely his identity is being used by the North Koreans and possibly other scammers.
I love you, baby. Have a good day, all right? I've been blacklisted, so can't get a bank account. Hell, I can't get a rental property in my name. So until I guess I get some type of
fucking crazy
resolve from this or some type of answer, some type of information, then life can start back, I guess, moving normally on that side.
The fuck?
Most people can say is, well, yeah, you're gonna have to make some calls and get this fixed, and now you're gonna have to answer a million questions like you're the one who stole your own identity. And it's like, so what do you do at this point?
Like, I don't get how you can get fucked over like that from identity theft. Like, if your identity was stolen, like, why do you get penalized for it? So fucking stupid. So Molecular did a whole video on Tren. I was gonna go through some of this.
Few dozen rats. The forgotten human approval. If you've done any reading on Trenbolone, you've come across Parabolin. 8 years before it launched, the identical molecule was already selling in French pharmacies under a brand no one but a single French historian has documented. Parabolin is the anchor everyone knows. It's the French injectable from Negma Laboratories on the market from 1980 to 1997. Each ampule was a milliliter and a half, carrying 76 milligrams of the long-acting ester, Trenbolone hexahydrobenzyl carbonate, hex carbonate for short. That ampule is where the compound's fame, its counterfeits, and most of the writing about it start. I pulled the old French pharmaceutical records that English-speaking sources don't reach. Parabolin was not the first approved version of Trenbolone. The forgotten one was called hexabolin. The molecule is identical. Trenbolone hexahydrobenzyl carbonate, same underlying Roussel-Uclaf patent, just a different manufacturer in a different commercial era. For 3 years, it ran on French pharmacy shelves as a legitimate prescription drug. French hospitals prescribed it to elderly cachectic patients, men and women wasting from age and illness. It was advertised in medical journals and exported to Francophone Africa under formal regulatory authorization in Senegal. 3 years on the shelf, and then it was gone. For decades, the only public account of hexabolin came from a French doping historian, and even his sourcing stayed thin. Take that away, and the drug is one sentence on Wikipedia. I recovered 3 documents that prove hexabolin was real. The first one is at the Smithsonian. Their National Museum of American History has an archive center, and inside the archive center, there's a collection called the Syntax Collection of Pharmaceutical Advertising. Syntax was an American pharma company. For 20 years, it clipped European steroid ads to keep tabs on the competition, then donated the whole collection to the Smithsonian. And in Box 7, Folder 31, the Smithsonian holds a 1971 print advertisement for hexabolin. It's shelved in Box 7, the French steroid section, right next to Organon's Durabolin, alongside the other big anabolic brands on the European market at the time. Syntax was treating Fartec as a serious competitor to the major multinationals. Hexabolin was a deliberate Roussel-Uclaf entry into a recognized competitive class. The second is at the Institut National de la Propriété Industrielle in Paris, the French trademark office. The hexabolin trademark was filed by Roussel-Uclaf on September 8, 1970 from their headquarters at 35 Boulevard des Invalides. The record on screen, number 1148550, is the 1980 renewal of that original filing. The trademark predates the commercial launch by roughly 15 months. The brand was protected as commercial property by the French state. The third is at the Senegalese National Archives, Journal Officiel.
I've trained a bit of kickboxing in BJJ, but not MMA.
de République du Sénégal, issue number 4288, published April 7th, 1973. It carries a single minstrel order, Arrêté 2514, clearing a batch of drugs for the Senegalese market. On that one order, Bayer, Ciba, Roche, Organon, and filed right beside them under Laboratory Fartec, the hexabolin injectable. Fartec was selling into Francophone Africa at the same regulatory tier as the big multinationals. Hexabolin was real. 3 institutions with no reason to coordinate hold a record of the same product. An American competitor's advertising files, a French trademark register, a West African gazette. The brand ran as a legitimate French pharmaceutical product from 1972 to 1975. The Vidal is France's national drug reference, the book French doctors prescribe from. Hexabolin's monograph from its commercial era is in this video. Nobody has retrieved it before, and it speaks straight to the question the bodybuilding world keeps arguing. Was Trenbolone ever clinically validated for human use? One line from that label verbatim from the 1975 Vidal. tones and energizes the
Can we just start playing Battletoads so I can spam its name to remind you of the life you were destined to have? The life you promised it. The life y'all promised each other.
Yeah, in a bit. We'll do that later.
apathetic and the fatigued revigorates the elderly. That's the prescribing copy Fartech wrote for trenbolone hexylhydrobenzyl carbonate in 1975 in the conical
That would definitely reinvigorate the elderly. I can guarantee you.
French pharmaceutical reference. Bodybuilders inject this compound for strength and muscle growth. In 1975, French GPs were handing it out as a vitality drug for old people who had lost their zest for life. So what was the published basis for the approval that put that language in front of French doctors? A few dozen rats, no human trial. The rat approval dossier. This is the compound they waved through to revive the frail. It's the same one that would become one of the harshest compounds in bodybuilding. And behind the stamp that cleared it for humans, the entire public pharmacology record for the molecule, as far as I can tell, was a short stack of rat studies. That stamp meant a product could be sold, not that it had ever been shown to work. The same approval standard applied to the whole industry, not to this drug alone. The rules just did not require more. Trenbolone reached a French pharmacy on the strength of 2 documents, and both of them were patents, not a clinical program. 2 special medicine patents from Roussel Uclaf about 4 years apart, each one a brevet spécial de médicament, a BSM Francis hybrid of a patent and a regulatory approval.
What's the point of doing gear if you can't do this? Unironically Pecora farming.
It's fucking stupid. Yeah, that's nice and dumb. Alright, well thanks, dude.
The first, granted in 1963, covered trenbolone itself and 2 early esters, the acetate and the benzoate. The second, granted in 1968, covered the one that went on sale, the hexahydrobenzyl carbonate depot ester, the slow-release version that became hexabolin and later parabolin. That 1968 patent is the approval basis for the exact ampule a French doctor prescribed. Open either file and the entire disclosed pharmacology is the same kind of experiment. Castrated rats dosed under the skin, sacrificed on a schedule so someone could weigh the organs that grow when an androgen is working. Seminal vesicle weight and prostate for androgenic effect, levator anti-muscle for the anabolic one. This is the whole evidence base. Organ weights in neutered rats benchmarked against nandrolone, the 19-nortestosterone the era used as its reference anabolic. Trenbolone's numbers were reported as a ratio against nandrolone's, and the human dose range was set by that comparison. The patent states that comparison in its own words. Equal to nandrolone on the delayed action assay, more androgenic and stronger on both when dosed daily. Rats only, measured against the era's benchmark steroid and nothing else. Nothing else specifically means no human data. Neither patent reports a controlled trial, a pharmacokinetic study, or a dose-finding study in a single person. The 1968 file that carried the marketed ester does not even contain a separate acute toxicity section, and neither did the 1963 filing before it. And where the form asked what was new about the invention, the novelty notice on that 1968 patent specifically reads neon, nothing. That was the record, a comparator and a novelty notice reading nothing. On that basis, the patent proposed the drug for human beings. The list of conditions was scattershot, osteoporosis, the metabolic disorders of long-term corticosteroid therapy, fibromas, breast cancer as an add-on, even healing varicose ulcers. A modern submission for a novel injectable hormone requires far more than that. Preclinical toxicology in 2 animal species, 2-year carcinogenicity studies in rodents, Phase 1 human safety data, pharmacokinetics in 20 to 40 healthy volunteers, Phase 2 dose finding in 1 to 300 patients, Phase 3 randomized controlled trials in thousands of subjects, and ongoing safety monitoring after the drug is on the market. The fair objection is that you can't judge a 1960s drug by modern rules, and that comparison is almost anachronistic because most of that modern regulatory apparatus did not exist yet when trenbolone's evidence base was built. One requirement came straight out of thalidomide. Prove that the drug works, not just that it doesn't visibly poison the test animals. Thalidomide was pulled from the market in 1961 after it was tied to thousands of birth defects, and over the next decade, the regulatory world rewrote its rules around that disaster. The United States passed the Coover-Harris Amendment in 1963, forcing drug makers for the first time to prove effectiveness in adequate, well-controlled human trials before approval. Europe's first pharmaceutical directive followed in January 1965, and the detailed standards for what counted as adequate testing arrived only in the mid-1970s. Trenbolone's foundational patent was granted in 1963, and the marketed drug cleared on a depot ester patent granted in 1968 before any of that landed. The science underneath the brand was locked in during the brief window when giving a compound to a few dozen rats and seeing nothing obvious go wrong was close to the entire job. So the safety case behind the drug we're talking about was assembled under a rule book that only asked whether a handful of animals visibly survived it, not whether it had worked, and not what it would do to a person over years. Trenbolone's own publicly disclosed dossier comes to 2 rat studies, both against a nandrolone ester. One, the benzoate, one, the phenylpropionate sold as Durabolin. No human data, and in the patent for the marketed ester, no separate acute toxicity study at all. A synthetic anabolic androgenic steroid approved for human use on a public record of rats. The gap between the evidence and the approval is not just a modern reading. Jean-Pierre de Mondenard, the French doping historian, titled his own dictionary entry on the compound without hedging. An anabolic steroid for cattle that France quietly passed off.
If Sis was vegan, would he have survived even with all the drugs, steroid abuse he did? No,
on
thanks.
humans for 20 years, despite the absence of any prior clinical trials. Everything disclosed in the public record to justify putting this molecule into humans had come from rats. The one study that isn't in the file. The way this compound gets talked about both in the clinics and in the community, there's one thing everyone agrees on. Trenbolone is a steroid with no available human data. Every Trenbolone study anyone can cite traces back to a feedlot or a cage. The modern literature says exactly that. That abbreviation on screen, 17-beta-TBOH, is Trenbolone. A 2010 review searching for controlled human studies of the drug finds none and has to reason about it from animals and from other androgens instead. The silence isn't only recent either. The leading English language androgen review of the 1980s doesn't mention Trenbolone anywhere in it. Not in the text, not in the figure of currently available androgens. The definitive survey of the field did not treat this compound as a human therapeutic agent. That line, no human data, is almost right. There is one human clinical study. It's in a print-only German pharmacology journal from the late 60s, never digitized, and it survives mostly because 2 later reference works had to cite it. It survives because of the beef. A World Health Organization safety review of Trenbolone written to set residue limits in cattle carries a short section titled Observations in Human Beings, and it points back to that one paper. So does the Merck Index, the standard drug encyclopedia. 2 independent works land on the same study, which tells you it exists and roughly what it said. Both of them are summaries, though neither is the study itself. So I went and found the paper itself, a 1976 paper out of Hanover in German, print only, never digitized. I read it cover to cover, and I want to be clear about what this is. This single paper is the entire human record of Trenbolone, the only time in more than 60 years that anyone has put this drug into a human being and measured what it did. Every claim you have ever heard about what Trenbolone does to a person traces back to these few pages, and almost nobody arguing about them has ever read them. I did, and the original tells you what the summaries leave out. The human Trenbolone study is barely a Trenbolone study at all. The paper is a trial of a different drug. Methyltrianolone, the oral sister molecule, the 17-alpha-methylated version you swallow. That's the compound the researchers cared about, and that's where most of their subjects went. Trenbolone.
Okay, oral tren would be the worst thing in the fucking world. Why the hell would they study an oral version?
Acetate, the injectable fast ester, sits off to the side as a 3-person appendix. 3 people, 5 milligrams into muscle every other day, and 1 of the 3 didn't respond at all. So the anabolic record for the injectable Trenbolone is 2 responders and a non-responder dosed for a couple of weeks in a study built to test something else. That doesn't rescue the no human data line, it sharpens it. The one study that exists is really about the pill, and Trenbolone is the footnote inside of it. The compounds came from Roussel, the same house that patented and sold the drug supplied out of Koblenz and Paris. On the nitrogen arm, the subjects were 2 men and 1 woman, and the on-drug measurements ran only about 2 weeks. The tables close out around day 15. That's the ceiling on the entire human Trenbolone record. Everything anyone has ever measured about this drug in the human body happened inside a roughly 2-week window, on a handful of people on the fast ester. Inside that window, though, the drug did the one thing an anabolic is supposed to do. In the 2 who responded, nitrogen balance swung toward retention, a sign that a compound is building tissue rather than burning it. On paper, that's a control period, losing about 11 grams of nitrogen a day, dropping to 6 or 8 on the drug. Work the difference out, and it lands near 3 grams of nitrogen a day held onto, peaking somewhere around 4.5 to 5 in the back half of the exposure. I want to be exact about where that number comes from. The paper prints how much nitrogen these people excreted and a retention percentage, and the grams retained figure is me subtracting the 2. It's derived, not a column you can point to, and it's 2 people. The authors say as much. They call the ester's potency quite considerable, and then in the same breath in 2 of 3. Keep in mind there was 1 non-responder. To be clear, the WHO summary isn't wrong here, only easy to misread. It's faithful. The volunteers did get 5 or 10 milligrams, and the nitrogen retention, the tissue building number everyone cites, is the 5 milligram arm, exactly as the summary says. The 10 milligram dose lives in the other measurements. It shows up in the panel tracking urinary androgen breakdown, where the single subject at that dose was a 58-year-old man, and it shows up in the menstrual observations where the subjects were women. To be clear, the anabolic finding and the endocrine findings were not in the same people. That second sentence in the 10 milligram group, some women showed disturbances of the menstruation cycle, is accurate. The primary fills in what the summary leaves out. 4 women had disrupted cycles, 2 whose periods came a week or 2 late, 2 who had bled longer than usual, but the disturbances didn't single out trenbolone. That paper reports them on both compounds. After 10 milligrams of injected trenbolone acetate and after half a milligram of the oral methyltrianolone. The authors tied that to not the dose or the ester, but to the class. The way these trianolones suppress the brain signal to the ovaries, the antigonadotropic action of the compound family. So women did get it at 10 milligrams of trenbolone. The summary's phrasing hides that it's a whole class property, showing up on the oral sister at a 20th of the dose, not something the 10 milligram trenbolone dose did on its own. The summary gets the rest roughly right. The androgen breakdown markers, which are the 17 ketosteroids, did drop under trenbolone. That's what you'd expect from a compound suppressing the body's own hormone production, but the original is more careful than the summary. Trenbolone moved the marker substantially less than the oral sister did, and the reading is muddied because the drug itself breaks down into things the assay counts. And the blood work didn't budge over the 2 weeks. Cholesterol, clotting, liver proteins all flat, and that's exactly what separated this injectable from the oral steroids of the same era that were turning people jaundiced. And here's the part you only get from the original because it's a contrast that lives inside the single paper. In the same study, the oral sister, methyltrianolone, did move the clotting factors. It raised the ones that make blood clot faster. The injectable trenbolone ran alongside it in the same protocol, didn't change them at all. That's the injectable versus oral split you hear about in the community,
Well, there you go.
drawn out of one primary source with both compounds in the same subjects on the same diet. The 17-alpha oral raises the clotting risk. The injected trian over that window doesn't. Now, the honest limitation on all of this, in the author's own hand, they understood exactly how far their numbers could travel, and they said so. A numeric comparison of these drugs against each other pulled from the published literature is impossible. The diets differ, the healthy subject baselines aren't there, and yet they write, our own results seem to justify saying it, the trianolones occupy a special position among the anabolic steroids known so far. In other words, you can't rank them precisely, but they're not ordinary. Held up against everything so far, the one study doesn't really help trenbolone. Every correction here subtracts. A human clinical study did exist, and it was never in the approval dossier. It was run on acetate, a different ester than the depot version that got sold to patients. It ran about 2 weeks, which tells you a little bit about nitrogen retention and about the reproductive axis, and nothing really about what years of exposure would do. Print in the first sentence. The Phenoplex veterinary parallel. The other thing you'll hear about this drug is that it's just a cattle steroid, something that started life in a feedlot and got diverted to humans. That has the order backwards. The human prescription brand came first, hexabolin on French pharmacy shelves in 1972, then parabolin. The cattle implant most people think of as the origin, Phenoplex, did not reach American approval until 1987. 15 years after the human brand launched off the same French patent. It is the same trenbolone carried on the fast acetate ester, where France had sold the slow hexahydrobenzyl carbonate. The molecule reached bodybuilding through a French drug company, not a feedlot, and the dual use was there from the first filing. Trenbalone's 1962 patent in its English form claims the compound for medicine, human, or veterinary before any cattle version existed. The patent treated a human patient and a feedlot animal as buyers of one molecule. The regulators did not. When Trenbolone finally reached a feedlot...
Dude, you're already real life Hulk. Stop being a faggot. Watch this biggest debate of the year. Yeah, apparently this was just boring.
Just out of curiosity, are you between 0 to 100? What is the likelihood that you think Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk and killed him?
Based on the evidence right now, I don't know, I'd say 75, 85%.
Candace?
0%.
0%.
I'm at 0.
So
with what we've seen in terms of the evidence, I'm at 0%.
So not only, you know, that maybe somebody was behind him as a patsy influencing him, you're not even saying that he didn't even shoot Charlie Kirk.
Right. I would, if you said, was he involved that day, as I have consistently said on my platform, I would say yes, he was. I don't know what role he played, but as the shooter, 0%.
Do you have any evidence for it?
For what? My percentage?
The fact that he didn't shoot and kill Charlie Kirk.
Yes, which I'm hoping we're going to get to all of the evidence that he feels that he has. I mean, I'm not even convinced that Charlie was shot from the rooftop on Losi that day, based on the evidence that has been.
Do you think he was shot?
I do not think that Charlie was shot from a 30-06 from
Yeah,
Losi.
but just shot at all.
I don't know. I think that a projectile hit Charlie, and I'm open to other people's presentations, but I have not seen any compelling evidence that Charlie was shot by a 30-06.
Can we see maybe if we're going to have an olive branch to each other, if maybe we can establish what we consider the facts of the case to be first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you're not sure if he was actually shot. You're open to alternative theories.
He was definitely hit with a projectile of some description. If we're talking about was he shot from a gun, a 30-06, I would say definitively no.
Okay.
There's a medical examiner's explanation of the shooting that's in the back. Rob, if you want to pull it up, and then Candace, if anybody from your team wants to pull something up, no problem as well, but they're requesting it. If you guys got it, pull it up so we can show it. And in the interim, is that it?
Yeah. So I'll read this.
Just what are we looking at, just so we know?
Yeah, so this says, the bullet, or at least part of it, sequentially perforated the interior left of Mr. Kirk's neck, strap muscles of the left side of the neck. This is a summary, by the way. Left common cartoid on the left internal external jugular veins. The bullet also obliterated the left side C27 vertebrae, transacted the cervical spinal cord. Medical examiner observed a significant portion of Kirk's cervical spinal cord was traumatically absent. Mr. Kirk suffered from other severe injuries, including bilateral, apical, and posterior intercausal hemorrhages, pulmonary, apical hemorrhages, multiple disruptions to the thyroid, et cetera, et cetera. So the summary of the examination is that he was shot.
Okay.
That was what they were pulling that up for.
Okay, and I'm not disputing that he could have been hit with a projectile. We're not disputing that, so I don't know why this was brought up as a fact check. I would like to know how you got to the conclusion, and I'm just going to throw it right back at you, because for some reason you permit yourself to do it, and that's what I'm demonstrating, is that you permit yourself to do it, and then you say, when I do it, it's a conspiracy, right?
No.
How are you able to infer off of blurry staircase images that is Tyler Robinson?
Yeah, so in that particular case, what you do is you take that evidence, you combine it with other evidence. So it's not just that Tyler Robinson is seen in the staircase.
Why are you calling him Tyler Robinson in the staircase? That's what I want to get to.
Yeah, because, I mean, we'll just use this. If you don't agree that that's Tyler Robinson, then you would just have to humor me. I think it is, so I'm using the name.
But why do you think it is? Because you make everybody, you call them conspiracy theorists.
That's literally what I'm trying to explain to you.
Okay.
So if you're asking for my inference why I think it's Tyler Robinson, is because Tyler Robinson said in his text messages, you'll be able to see me on security footage at the campus. Said it in his own messages. On top of that, Twigs, yes, you can pull them up if you want to fact check that. He did say.
Yeah, I would. I'm sorry. I actually think I really did miss that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't remember him saying you're going to see me in.
I'm paraphrasing, but it was
pull that up?
Yeah,
You may have it.
By the way, Twigs himself said that he had some maybe a tiny bit of doubt, but it sure looked like Tyler Robinson inside of this various surveillance footage that he saw.
So Lance, sorry,
hang on. So there's multiple reasons why it is that I believe that that's Tyler Robinson, not just because of blurry footage.
Did you have a dream? Just kidding.
No, it's because I combined multitudes of evidences.
Okay, so let's address those multitude of evidences. The first one we're working on a fact check on, because I do not ever remember him tweeting that's me in the staircase. Or texting that's me in the staircase. I think that I
didn't say that. I said I literally didn't. What I said is that he texted over, you'll be able to see me in footage at UVU. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said.
Yeah, could we get a fact check on that? The second thing you said was Lance's testimony, and actually what Lance says is I'm not 100%.
I agree.
But in terms of what he wears, again, pointing out the absurdity, he wears Converses, he wears sneakers. If his boyfriend is not 100%, I'd like to understand why Andrew Wilson is overwhelmed by it. That's what I'm trying to get to. And lastly, I would like to remind you that Lance's statement would not be permitted. This was a huge part of the preliminary hearing, that they were leading. All the questions that were asked of him were leading, so they would be struck down at the actual trial. And also, I would like to remind you that he got use immunity for that. Use immunity.
I understand.
Which means that
happens, by the way, all the time in these cases.
I'm wondering why it particularly happened for Lance and this testimony. And I would also like to point out that something that's remarkable about this, again, leaning to my perspective, that Lance has a lot more, which I have said many times, Lance has a lot more involvement than the feds are letting us know. I think more is going to come out because they interviewed him on September 11th, and then for whatever reason, just ahead of what was supposed to be slated as the preliminary hearing, which was initially supposed to be in May, they bring him back to do this interview, which in my opinion should have never been allowed. And I actually agree with the defense that it's a violation of his constitutional rights not to allow them to have cross-examined him. But I understand Utah 1102, do what you do. It's all hearsay. But to allow it in that way, for him to just be able to also have use immunity, knowing that he's not going to get in trouble. He could literally get up there and lie about anything, and he's not going to get in trouble because the use immunity was given to him in April, I believe. April 28th is when they gave that testimony to the defense. I think they shot it in like April 20th of 2026. That is not not compelling to me for somebody who has use immunity to give a testimony and to say, I'm not really sure, but definitely like he wears jeans and stuff.
That's not what he said.
He did. Actually, you can get a fact check on that.
That's not, he said much more than that.
So a couple things we have. We have Rule 801, Tyler's messages, that says it's not hearsay. But first, go to what Candace is asking about. Skylar, I think you have it. You just text me if you want to pull it up. You said you have the text. If we can put that up on the screen. Thank you.
It was me. Look at the pictures from the surveillance footage. It was me. Okay. I literally said to you, it's not oof. I said I didn't remember this, and I'm happy to have a fact check on that. Okay. I didn't call for the fact check saying you're wrong. I literally said I don't remember that.
Well, I'm just saying to you, like, I'm trying to be concise for you.
And then also bring the 801 that you just said. What was the other one?
Yep, the 801. Tyler messages saying it's not hearsay. If you have that as well. There you go.
Wait, what are we saying? It's not hearsay.
Statements that are not hearsay. A statement that meets the following conditions is not hearsay.
It was hearsay. They said it in the trial.
Hang on.
Okay.
Okay. Is consistent with the declarant's testimony and the declarant denies having made the statement or has forgotten, or is consistent with the declarant's testimony and is offered to rebut the express implied charge that the declarant recently fabricated or acted in recent improper influence or motive in testifying. So then wouldn't that mean that a bunch of this wasn't hearsay?
So the issue with his
I just want to make sure. Would that mean that a bunch of this wasn't hearsay?
So the opposing party, which down the line, like I said, they talked about this for about an hour and a half, and they discussed how if Lance was in court and he was giving his first party, giving his testimony as the opposing party, whatever, all of this would be fine. They had an issue with how the questions were being asked and that they were not allowed to cross-examine him.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why his video testimony would not be accepted in the main trial. And what
That
I
has
said to you
nothing
is
to do with it being hearsay.
entire preliminary hearing is under Utah's 1102. So they are allowed to just use hearsay. And
No,
so
you
the
didn't
judge,
say that.
when
You said most of it was hearsay, actually.
Yeah,
the overwhelming majority.
Well, I mean, and that's I'm leaning now into my opinion that some scientific aspects, which they kept asserting, like the federal rule 403 or 402, some of those parts were quite
Sounds like
scientific.
you're backtracking quite a bit.
No, I'm not backtracking at all. What do you feel like let me help you. Where do you feel like I'm backtracking? It literally was done under Utah's 1102.
Yeah, nobody disputed that.
Okay.
What the dispute was is whether or not most of it was overwhelmingly hearsay.
Yes,
Is that the
it
case?
was. Yes,
Okay.
that's a fact. I'm not backtracking on
And
that
what
at
are
all.
the things
How many times did you watch a video here? It's like they constantly, I'm 1102, 1102, 1102, 1102,
That's true.
1102. And the reason for that is because it's allowed. I'm not saying it's illegal. It's allowed at this stage, but I'm just reminding you that when you're going to sit across from someone and your claim is going to be, where is your hard evidence? This is what I heard and I agree with what I'm watching. You are watching the state put on a hearsay preliminary hearing.
Hearsay,
and all of those things are not going to be allowed, right? Even when they got into witness statements and things of that nature. There's a reason why they swear you in and they say, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth? Did you, write this statement? So it's the overwhelming majority of what you saw was hearsay because other people were representing other people's statements. They were saying they had conversations. We don't know where it came from. All allowed at this stage. Okay. But it's hearsay. So
but even a lot of that stuff may not fall under hearsay under what we just read, right?
But the evidence that you're speaking about, like when you say that we're going off vibes, you don't know Tyler Robinson.
So she's just coming up with a completely different definition of hearsay?
Okay. His boyfriend is not 100% it was him. So I'm going back to your points that you made that this was overwhelming evidence for you. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, overwhelming just means
you can't
convincing.
consider another option that there could have been another white guy wearing Converses on campus?
Yeah, do you agree with me that I said that what overwhelming means to me is that it's just very convincing to me?
Yeah, and I find it to be completely unconvincing.
And that's fair.
Because
I understand that
I looked at those blurry photos that they presented and said, your statement on right now is that he's wearing Converses and he also, that's just crazy.
But these aren't the evidences that I find the most convincing.
Well, you said that in your Twitter.
That's not the only thing I've ever said on my Twitter about this case.
Right, but the question that was asked of you was pretty direct, right? What did you find
this
to
is
be?
not an exhaustive list of all the things
well,
that I
that's not
find
what you said
convincing.
in the tweet. You can tweet longer too. It's not like we're limited now to 240 characters anymore.
So anything that I tweet and all other tweets that I've ever made are now excluded because I used the word overwhelming in this one.
Well,
even though all of this information I've said so publicly over and over and over again is what informs my position for why I'm convinced on the case. That's bizarre to me.
I feel like this is Andrew versus Andrew. Somebody asked you a question. What are the points that you find to be the most overwhelming? And you answered.
You mean from that particular day of the hearing that I was responding to?
Is there something you find to be more overwhelming? Let me ask you that question.
Yes,
okay,
that's what I was saying.
Okay, go ahead, go on. What do you find to be more overwhelming?
Yeah.
Can we do this? Do we want to get into it, or do we want to do a quick ad break? Are you guys good to keep going, or
I'm fine to keep going, but we can
would
also.
you like to take a quick break?
Doesn't matter to me either
If
way.
we're going into a different topic, that may be another 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I don't want to stop you guys in the middle of it.
Let's end on what you find to be more overwhelming.
Yeah. So if we're for me, it's the confessions, the text messages, all of that is what I consider to be. From my opinion, that's the most convincing for me. Okay, so yeah, I used basically 3 pillars for the totality of the evidence. Okay, so if you want to know exactly what those 3 pillars are, this is going to be the testimony with the text messages and the confessions. This is going to be the physical evidence, and this is going to be the totality of the summary of the case. Okay, so right now we're focusing on one of these pillars in my defense, which is fine. I understand that I have to defend my claims as well. So when we're talking about the messages themselves, they seem totally valid. I have no idea why they wouldn't be valid. And I have not heard any good.
I don't give a shit if you're a fucking retard who can't understand. This is very easily legible. If you're too stupid to fucking understand plain English.
Whichever bitch ass void loving moderator put me in timeout, I'm coming for your mother, you hoe.
That's great.
Explanation for why it is that these messages should even be questioned. The defense hasn't questioned them, as far as I'm aware. Nobody has actually questioned that these messages came from Robinson to date, except perhaps you and other people who are kind of in that camp. But why should I question these exactly? I'm not sure.
Okay, so first let's just go over legally what the point is of a probative hearing. The defense is not they're not there to say or to argue or to defend themselves at all. They have to address what is being presented by the state, okay? So they're not here to then say, let me give you an explanation for these text messages.
Agreed.
The relevant portion of what the defense did do was actually before we got to the preliminary hearing. I had mentioned that it was initially supposed to be scheduled for some time in May. They asked for an extension. That reading through those filings of why they were requesting an extension and why I actually believe their extension should have been granted because they did not receive discovery on their text messages. That was one of the reasons. There were many reasons why they wanted to have an extension, but this was crucial, right? So forget just the general sense that these messages feel off. And yes, you are allowed to have an intuition. You are allowed to have a sense and just go, this is very weird. We're being told this kid had like above a 4.0, Tyler Robinson. He wanted to get away. I mean, the text messages almost run head to head with themselves. Like he wanted to get away with it. So he thought the best thing to do would be to text a full confession of what he did down to what I didn't even remember saying, yeah, and that's also me in the surveillance footage. It felt a little too on the nose. People have common sense. You just don't text message. But then we're also supposed to believe that he put a note under because and burn this and get rid of the evidence. But don't worry about that because I'm about to text you a full confession. That it felt off. It felt weird off the bat. The manner in which they were texting, we're told he's like
the guy's a retard. You can just listen to the way the dude talks. He's just dumb.
A gamer who's using a Dremel to carve expressions, catch fascist, but then suddenly he's writing like a 1700
Also, as a Helldivers
novelist.
player, he did actually get the 500K code correct.
Yeah, I'm not a gamer, so we'll say that if we start debating that, you'll be way over my head.
But yes,
but my point being
yeah.
is just that first, it's a general sense of why people had a reaction to these messages that seemed like they were written by Jane Austen rather than like a kid who games and writes catch
But you see how
fascist.
that's intuition?
That is, I am. I just said that. I said just parking aside the intuition of just something feels wrong here, which you should follow your intuition. You should actually do that. If you say the COVID vaccine is running out, feels like it's coming out too fast, and there's too many celebrities telling me to do it, I'd like to take a pause. That's good. That is, you are allowed to do that. I believe in intuition.
But hang on. Let me
aside,
respond a little bit here because you've been going for a minute. Let me at least respond to a little bit of this. So the first thing is like when people bring up the COVID vaccine, not trusting the COVID vaccine en masse was the science. That wasn't just intuition. That was the science. There was tons of competing science.
Andrew went on live with Steven Crowder and name dropped you. He said you were even way more charitable and was willing to have a conversation. She was acting like a bitch nigga the whole time. Would you smash? What? Oh, you mean Candace? No. So Andrew went on Steven Crowder and actually mentioned that I'm a much more charitable person and easier to talk to. I'd like to see that clip, if there's a clip of it. Thanks, Sago.
Yes. Now, they tried to suppress it, that's true, but there was tons of competing science for why you shouldn't take a risky mRNA vaccine and mass and things like this. Now, when you're talking about intuition, though, when you say trust your intuition, I'm actually giving a different message. You actually should be very wary about trusting just your intuition. It is true that intuition can be useful, but it has to be tempered with logic, reason, explanatory power, and evidence, not just intuition.
That's why we're parking it aside. Intuition's the first step. Something feels off, right?
Okay.
That was my first step with COVID. I don't like the way it's being pushed. It shouldn't require a celebrity campaign, by the way.
I don't know why people are acting like, oh, Tyler Robinson was acting weird. Like, who would write things this way and text like that? He's like you can just see video footage of the guy before the shooting and everything and his social media posts. The guy's probably on the spectrum for autism. Like there's something wrong with him. He's like a little retarded. You can just tell. So yeah, he's just an awkward retard and he acted like an awkward retard.
Another element of that is why people don't feel good about the Charlie thing. Why do we have so many influencers saying things? It's over. Why are you guys all using the same adjective? Can you switch it up? I'm overwhelmed. Like, chill. Like, you could say, I found some parts compelling. I think this should go.
Like
I found some parts compelling. Maybe we should, see at the trial. That would be
Don't you think FedSlop's a buzzword for the counter industry?
But everyone on the same day of watching this trial, which was, I would say, not overwhelming at all. Nobody came in medium, right? No one came in like there were some interesting aspects. This was a little suspect. But I do think it's enough to go to trial. They all came in like they were passing away and we're going to die from being overwhelmed.
Well, they're trusting their intuition.
Okay. Well, actually, in that scenario, they're looking at the preliminary hearing and have a reaction to it. It wasn't their intuition. But like I said, parking aside, just getting to the substance, parking that aside, just a general intuition, some text messages. Then we look at the filings, which came from the defense, and they were requesting an extension saying, we have gone to the prosecution and we have requested all of this stuff in discovery. Yes, you are saying that you took Lance's phone, okay, and that you collected his phone on September 11th and that you sent it off or whatever. You took a picture of the text messages and we are being given these text messages to review. Crucially, Kathy Nestor said, I have not even been given access to my client's phone during this hearing. She said, I haven't been given access to my client's phone. She can't tell you, as a part of the discovery request, it's not enough to say to me, Candace, I just got a text message from Candace. And I say, I didn't send that text message. Maybe that's what her client's saying. We don't know because we're not at the trial, right? Maybe he didn't send those messages. Could there be someone who logged into his Discord? Could there be someone who logged in to his Apple? George could be sending text messages right now. We are married. He has every login that I have. And remember, He's up for a death sentence. So if I'm able to sow reasonable doubt with common sense, he may come during the trial and when they actually have to address these points, say, I did not write those messages. I was here. Lance, my boyfriend, was logged into my phone, logged into my Apple ID and my iCloud sending messages. I know that we have capability because my husband does it. He has capability to send messages from my phone. It is not convincing to the public when, for whatever reason, the FBI combined with the SBI, it was not the prosecution's fault. They made that clear during that hearing, would not allow them that discovery request to be able to see where did that message come from? Because you're saying my client was here, right? I want to know if that message actually was generated from his iPhone when he was waiting to retrieve his, rifle, hoping that the pooch doesn't have a bad sniffer, like just weird messages. I want to make sure that, yes, it was actually him. He was holding his phone and his boyfriend didn't just log in to his computer when he was home. Lance was his boyfriend. That is a crucial fact here. That discovery was not met by the time I got to preliminary hearing. So I remain unconvinced by these text messages. Just as you feel convinced by them, I feel unconvinced by them.
Okay. So then the idea here is the reason.
So first of all, they'd have, if it wasn't sent from his phone and it was like in his computer login, they'd know that. There'd be a cell phone history. Like, does she not know how technology works?
And that you don't think that these are valid text messages, and you don't, right?
It has not been proven that these messages are valid and they don't sound valid to me.
Your argument to me is that, hey, wait a second, Andrew, there's not enough here that convinces me. Right.
Well, that's actually my rebuttal to you, is that you are saying, why are people engaging in what you term to be conspiracy theories?
No.
I term it to be thinking. They're just thinking because they're recognizing there are a lot of holes in these stories and that this is not strong evidence, right? This is the reason they're doing it. I'm explaining to you, this is the reason that they're doing it. I'm addressing what you view to be overwhelming evidence. And by the way, I want to be clear.
That which convinces me.
But thus far, every point that you've brought up, every point that you've brought up, did you feel like this is beyond a reasonable doubt? I mean, you realize
remember what I said in my opening.
Going to be
it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's just what I find convincing is what I find overwhelming.
So why are you so upset when people say they don't find it
convincing? If that was the limitation of the claims that you made, if it was just, wait a second, there's a little bit of problems, there's some problems in this case that I have questions for that I want answers to, nobody have a problem actually. At least of all me. I would be the least likely person to have an issue with you, any of your fans, anybody saying. In fact, I've had tons of Discord calls about this. My position's always been clear. Of course, conspiracies exist. Some of them have way better evidence than others, but I've seen them myself. I know conspiracy. In fact, the federal government has hundreds of thousands of laws about conspiracies. They see them everywhere. We both know this, right? That's never what the problem is. The problem is when you make claims outside of, well, wait a second. I'm just questioning evidence here. I'm just questioning what the state's case is here. I'm just asking questions. It's when you make claims outside of that, where you claim that there's good evidence or good standards you should believe because, and then it turns out that it's all nonsense or it's wackadoo stuff or it makes no sense. And when we have a chance to cross-examine your evidence that you presented, I'm going to show a lot of that. A lot of this conjecture that's based on literally nothing that leads from no inferences whatsoever. Like you couldn't even infer it logically. That's the problem. The problem has never been whether or not you just said, there's not enough in this case so far until we get to the trial. I remain unconvinced. I'm sure there's tons of people who remain unconvinced yet until we get to the trial. I think that's fine. I think it's fine. There's people who are convinced too. That's never been my problem. My problem is the claims which are external to that.
Okay. I'm not sure I really care if you have a problem with what I think in my own spare time. I don't understand this lecture that you just gave. But beyond that, what I'm saying is that the state is allowed to use. This is what my problem.
Like she is so stupid she can't even follow a basic conversation.
Is you guys are not like, you guys think while it's illegal, you can. You are allowed to do that. So, but anyway, going back to you saying I wouldn't have a problem. I think I just demonstrated pretty thoroughly that what you claim that you have a problem with is exactly what the state is engaged in at this stage. So it just doesn't make sense.
That's not the case. In fact,
so if people look and they say I'm looking at the gun and I see and I'm inferring this, and someone else says I'm looking at the gun evidence and I'm inferring that, they're both doing the exact same thing.
They're not.
You're just saying I want to do it for the state.
That's propositionally false.
That is not propositionally
I'll explain
false.
Exactly how. It is the case that every proposition is going to have a true or false conclusion, period. That's just logic, right? It's the law of excluded middle. All propositions are going to be true or they're going to be false. When we're making inferences, we're making inferences based on propositions. We can actually come to true conclusions with false premises inside of a proposition. In fact, what we're talking about here is not whether or not you feel that you're convinced by this evidence.
But you felt like you were convinced.
Right? Sure. But here's the thing. When you ask me my reason, Andrew, why are you convinced by this? I can give you my reasons why I'm convinced by it, why it seems reasonable and rational to me to be convinced. You could even say, but Andrew, I'm just not convinced by it. If that was the limitation of your claims, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
She's like just fucking stupid.
It had to clear a bar the human version was never held to. The American veterinary approval was not the first commercial form of trenbolone acetate. Before Russell Uclaf filed for American approval in 1987, the same molecule had been on the European veterinary market under the brand name Phenoject and the cattle implant brand name Phenoplex, both marketed by Distravet, a French veterinary pharmaceutical company. The pharmaceutical manufacturing encyclopedia files all four trenbolone brands under a single trenbolone acetate entry. Parabolin from Negma, Phenoject, and Phenoplex from Distravet, Hexabolin from Fartec. Two of the four, Parabolin and Hexabolin, are the hexahydrobenzyl carbonate ester. The encyclopedia groups the esters under the same acetate filing. Every commercial form of the molecule was French. In Europe, the veterinary brands were Distravet until Russell Uclaf took the implant version to the United States in 1987. In 1987, the United States Food and Drug Administration approved new animal drug application 138612 for Phenoplex H and Phenoplex S ear implant pellets containing trenbolone acetate for growth promotion in feedlot heifers and steers. The sponsor of record on the Notafile 138612 was Russell Uclaf. The same French pharmaceutical company that first patented trenbolone back in 1962 filed for American veterinary approval of trenbolone acetate 25 years later. The implant is composed of small pellets, each pellet containing 20 milligrams of trenbolone acetate. For heifers, the formulation delivers 10 pellets per implant, a total of 200 milligrams of trenbolone acetate per animal. The steer formulation delivers 7 pellets per implant for a total of 140 milligrams per animal, placed under the skin on the posterior aspect of the ear. The implant is designed for slow release across the cattle finishing period. Heifers get the implant in their last 63 days before slaughter. Steers are re-implanted once every 63 days for continued effect. And the implant form factor was something Russell Uclaf had, and another as a cattle implant.
Vegetable Police has become a Christian. 80-90% of his comment section is Christian now, another grift. With Vegetable Police, I don't really think it's deliberate grifting. That guy has absolutely no critical thinking skills, and I mean zero. He literally believes the last thing he's told, so, if he's just told a dumb idea and he kind of just likes it, he's just gonna do it. So maybe it's a grift. I don't like, but yeah, generally with his behavior, what I've seen is, it's usually he's just stupid. Griffith did nothing wrong. Low-key, yeah, dude.
Modern persistence. Trenbolone has been prohibited in competitive sports since 1988, but that listing arrived less cleanly than the bare data suggests. The compound first appeared on the IOC prohibited list in categories in 1988, but only by assimilation. It came in under the substances apparentes clause related to substances in the anabolic androgenic steroid section. It was not explicitly named on the WADA prohibited list nomenclature until January 1st, 2004. The IAAF, now World Athletics, banned trenbolone in January 2003. France's sports ministry banned the compound in 1989. The same year, Vidal added the sportif warning to the parabolin monograph. 16 years separated the 1988 informal coverage from the 2004 explicit listing. Mondenar offers his own explanation for that gap from his 2026 fiche verbatim. Mondenar's reason is simple. Parabolin was only ever sold in France. The IOC's explicit nomenclature was tracking compounds with international commercial distribution. Trenbolone hexcarbonate sat on French pharmacy shelves and nowhere else. Coverage came through the substances apparentes assimilation clause in 2004, by which point Negma had already withdrawn the brand. The compound was explicitly listed in international anti-doping nomenclature only after it was off the commercial market. The French anti-doping laboratory at Châtenay-Malabry reported 0 positive trenbolone cases for more than 2 decades from 1989 to 2010. The first positive case in any French sport came out of a customs investigation. In January 2011, customs investigators took a young rugby player into custody alongside a teammate. The player was Devi Garland of the Pierre Nyan Club's development squad. The accredited lab found the metabolites of 3 separate anabolic steroids in his urine: nandrolone, boldenone, and trenbolone. He was banned for 4 years by the French Rugby Federation. The 2-decade silence before that first case could mean the lab wasn't testing for trenbolone, that it couldn't detect it, or that nobody was using it. The third reading is contradicted by the case report literature. The first 2 are exactly what we would expect from an era whose diagnostic infrastructure was structurally weak. These same weaknesses cut across both eras. In hexabolin's day, it kept doctors from tracing harm back to the drug. In parabolin's, it kept the anti-doping system from reliably detecting what athletes were taking. The compound persists in 2 places the testing system reaches unevenly: bodybuilding cultures no one screens, and a food supply that carries it by design. It happened again in January 2026. Major League Baseball suspended a free agent outfielder 80 games for testing positive not for trenbolone itself, but for epitrenbolone. the same metabolite that runs through every one of these cases. One case anchors the whole beef defense because both sides put their science on record and you can read exactly where it broke. In March 2024, Arian Knighton, American 200-meter sprinter and Olympic finalist, tested positive out of competition for epitrenbolone. His defense was a meal. He'd eaten oxtail from a Florida restaurant a few days before the test. On paper, that oxtail traced back through a Florida distributor, from there to one of Mexico's largest beef producers, and to its feedlot in Nicaragua, where cattle are implanted with trenbolone the way most of the world's are. His urine concentration was low, his hair test negative, he passed a polygraph, and he had been tested 62 times and was clean every other time. The first arbiter sitting for the New Era Tribunal weighed all of it and ruled on the balance of probabilities that meat contamination was the more likely explanation. No fault, no ban. The whole case turned on one number. The prosecution's own pharmacokinetics ran the math. He modeled beef carrying 2 nanograms of trenbolone per gram, the ceiling U.S. regulators allow in muscle. Even at that level, the urine reading you'd predict comes out almost 20-fold lower than what Knighton actually produced. The oxtail that was actually tested wasn't close to that ceiling. It came back at 1/10 of a nanogram per gram, 20 times lower still. To get this reading from beef, the meat would have had to be dirtier than the legal limit for American muscle, let alone dirtier than anything else tested in this case. The defense had to live with one wrinkle. The specific oxtail Knighton ate was never tested because he ate it. The beef that got analyzed came from a later shipment through the same chain, not the meal on his plate. The record spells out the context in the industry's own words. Anabolic steroids have been standard in American beef for over 65 years. More than 90% of U.S. feedlot cattle carry an implant. And by the testimony in this same award, since 2008, almost nobody in the United States tests beef for trenbolone at all. That is the environment every one of these contamination defenses is built on. Then it went to appeal, and this time it went the other way. A 3-member court for arbitration for sport panel took the exact evidence the first arbiter had credited: the low concentration, the clean proximate tests, the negative hair analysis, the negative polygraph. None of it, the panel said, could do the job it was being asked to do. The panel stopped short of calling the contamination account impossible. Not scientifically impossible, it found, but not more likely than not either. The 4-year ban stood. Alex Wilson, a Swiss sprinter who had run a 9.84 second 100 meters in 2021, returned a positive trenbolone test the same year and ran the same defense. Beef this time from a Las Vegas restaurant. It was rejected, and he too was banned for 4 years. And this pattern predates Knighton.
Yeah, Trend's great. Trend's really great. It makes you fucking strong.
It's cited inside his own case file. In 2018, American sprinter Jaron Lawson tested positive for the same metabolite epitrenbolone and ran the same argument. Contaminated beef, in this case, a teriyaki bowl. He won. The Court of Arbitration for Sport accepted his contamination defense in 2019 and cleared him, which is exactly why his case shows up.
I cook my tofu in the air fryer.
As a precedent inside the
And yeah, I have rice with it.
Knighton Award. Same compound, same defense, 3 endings. Lawson cleared, Wilson banned outright, Knighton cleared, and then banned on appeal. The 2 cases divided on whether the residue math and the actual meat held up under expert cross-examination, and in Knighton's case, they didn't. Knighton's contamination defense won him a no-fault ruling at the first hearing, but did not survive the appeal. Wilson was rejected outright, or the population the actual prescriptions reached. Synthesis. One molecule runs through all of it, trenbolone. Fartech sold it as the hexahydrobenzyl carbonate ester, hexabolin, from 1972 to 1975. Negma sold that same ester as parabolin from 1980 to 1997. Roussel Uclaf had its veterinary arm, Hearst Roussel Agravet, sold it as acetate, Finaplex, from 1987 on. And it is the trenbolone the WADA prohibited list has explicitly named since 2004. Different esters, one molecule. 3 commercial lives, 4 patient populations, and a continuous 54-year regulatory history with one consistent finding. Regulatory authorization for the human pharmaceutical never required a controlled clinical trial of the marketed ester in the modern sense, and on the record, never produced one. The human clinical study on record does not close that gap. 2 weeks on the acetate, absent from the approval file. The cattle version went through a full modern trial package before the FDA cleared it in 1987. The human version, hexabolin and parabolin, across a quarter century, never had one. Approval cleared trenbolone to be sold. It never cleared the evidence that would justify how the drug is used now. The Vidal evidence base was thin across both eras. The case report archive captures what the drug was really used for. The 1987 FDA Phenoplex approval demonstrates what a modern clinical bar looked like on the very same molecule, and the 2-decade French detection gap measures how far behind the monitoring had fallen. Was Trenbolone approved for humans, cleared as a marketable product in the narrow sense? Yes. Validated by clinical trials, adequate for the doses and bodies the modern community puts it into? No, it never was. Tren is functionally an aromatase inhibitor. Trenbolone users can run substantial amounts of testosterone with it and still stay reasonably dry without needing an aromatase inhibitor, while the same testosterone dose by itself would often produce estrogenic side effects. Part of the reason is that Trenbolone is non-estrogenic. Unlike testosterone, it doesn't aromatize into estrogen. But that's a smaller factor than it's usually given credit for, and it isn't the main way Trenbolone works. Trenbolone doesn't bind the aromatase active site, the pocket on the enzyme where testosterone gets converted into estrogen. Instead of blocking the enzyme, it lowers how much aromatase the body makes and weakens the effect of whatever estradiol is still around. The second effect is the one people overlook because estrogen's effect can fall without the estradiol falling with it. A user who reads a normal estradiol number and stacks an aromatase inhibitor on top of Tren is usually suppressing a signal that Tren has already brought down and ends up pushing his estrogen far lower than he needs to. So estradiol doesn't necessarily crash on Trenbolone alone. The hormone keeps circulating and only its effect weakens. That reduction runs along 3 separate routes. Trenbolone adds no estradiol of its own. It suppresses the enzyme that makes estradiol in fat, and it interferes with estradiol's signal once it reaches the cell. What an aromatase inhibitor does. First, how an aromatase inhibitor lowers estradiol. Aromatase inhibitors like anastrozole, letrozole, and exemestane block the effects. Why Tren gyno happens anyway, PR signaling and the breast tissue exception. A Trenbolone user can have serum estradiol low and well controlled by an aromatase inhibitor and still grow glandular tissue behind the nipple. If estrogen in the blood is suppressed and the gland still enlarges, estrogen is not the only thing making it grow. In muscle, liver, and ordinary fat, Trenbolone lowers estrogen. It does not aromatize, so it adds no estrogen of its own. It also blocks the glucocorticoid receptor, cortisol's receptor, and in fat, that receptor is what switches the I4 promoter of the aromatase gene on. A promoter is a stretch of DNA that controls when a gene is transcribed, and a gene can carry several, each responding to a different signal. The I4 promoter responds to glucocorticoids, so with that receptor blocked, I4 stays off, and aromatase in fat falls. Trenbolone also competes for coactivators. Coactivators are the shared helper proteins a receptor recruits to transcribe its target genes, and AR and ER both draw on the same ones, P300, CBP, and SRC. When Trenbolone saturates AR sequesters those coactivators, and ER stays bound to DNA, but can no longer recruit the complex it needs to transcribe. This competition is called squelching. The backup aromatase promoter in breast fat. In ordinary fat, aromatase runs off the I4 promoter under glucocorticoid control, which is why blocking GR lowers it. Breast adipose fibroblasts, the cells in fat that actually make aromatase, can also run that gene off of 2 other promoters, I3 and P2. Those 2 respond to prostaglandin E2, the inflammatory signal that NSAIDs like ibuprofen and aspirin block. They do it through a route in the cell that never involves the glucocorticoid receptor. Trenbolone's block on the glucocorticoid receptor cannot suppress a promoter that receptor does not control. Those first descriptions came from cancer, where the shift from I4 to I3 and P2 drives the excess estrogen the tumor grows on. The same promoters run in healthy breast fat. HIF-1 alpha is a factor cells switch on when oxygen runs low, and here PGE2 raises it instead. The raised HIF-1 alpha binds the P2 promoter and increases aromatase transcription in human. Squelching requires high AR density, as in muscle, prostate, and bone. There, AR sequesters enough of the shared coactivators that ER can no longer transcribe its targets, and estrogen signaling drops to near zero. Breast ductal cells carry all 3 receptors, but they carry AR at far lower density than muscle does. In 30 of 30 gynecomastia cases, AR, ER, and PR were each found in the ductal cell nuclei. At that lower density, AR cannot sequester enough of the shared pool to shut ER down. ER keeps meaningful access to P300, CBP, and SRC, so estrogen signaling in breast is attenuated rather than eliminated. The estrogen acting on those ducts is made locally by aromatase in the surrounding stromal cells. And unlike female breast cancer, male breast cancer carries no obesity association, a sign the estrogen is made in the breast, not delivered from body fat. Trenbolone as a superphysiological PR agonist. Trenbolone is a progesterone receptor agonist, and the progesterone receptor drives mammary duct proliferation independent of ER. Progesterone induces 2 waves of that proliferation. The direct wave works inside the PR-positive cells themselves through cyclin D1, the gene whose product tells a cell to divide. The larger wave is paracrine. Those same cells release RANKL, a signal that acts on neighboring PR-negative cells and makes them divide too. Men carry vestigial mammary tissue with the receptors and the program intact. It normally does nothing because adult men make very little progesterone, so the progesterone receptor there is barely occupied. Trenbolone changes both the binding and the amount. It binds the progesterone receptor with higher affinity than progesterone.
Void worshiper, like, why don't you learn how to be a fucking adult and feed yourself? There's seitan, there's TVP, soy chunks, soy curls, like any soy product. Like, why are you even asking? Like, you're just I banned you for a reason, dude. Stop being a fucking cunt.
Progesterone does, though the only number comes from a cow. In the one binding assay that measured it, Trenbolone bound the bovine PR at about 1.4 times progesterone's affinity, roughly 137%. No one has measured Trenbolone's affinity at the human PR. The bovine value is the only one that exists. Concentration compounds it, though. Adult male progesterone stays under 1 nanogram per milliliter, while Trenbolone on cycle reaches an estimated 10 to 100 times that molar level. That figure is an estimate since human Trenbolone plasma levels have never been formally quantified. But a ligand that binds more tightly and circulates at 10 to 100 times the concentration nearly saturates the progesterone receptor, and occupancy is graded. Progesterone also reads high on a Trenbolone user's blood work, and that reading is immunoassay cross-reactivity. Trenbolone itself cross-reacts with the antibody the assay uses, a false positive. Only mass spectrometry, which separates the 2 molecules by weight, can rule it out. There is no extra progesterone in the blood, and the progestin label, while technically correct, understates what Trenbolone does at the receptor. The usual community fix attributes the growth to prolactin and treats it with cabergoline. Cabergoline does nothing at the progesterone receptor, and the proliferation is PR-driven. What PR does to the estrogen system? Proliferation is the direct mechanism, and on its own would explain Trengyno. The progesterone receptor also reshapes the estrogen system indirectly through several further effects whose direction has been measured in cell models, but not in male breast tissue. Agonist-bound PR reprograms where the estrogen receptor works. A receptor systrome is the full set of DNA sites it binds across the genome. When an agonist occupies PR physically associates with estrogen receptor alpha, the main estrogen receptor in breast tissue. That association redirects where estrogen receptor alpha binds across the genome, changing the gene program where estradiol never changes. That was shown in ER-positive breast cancer cell lines and mouse grafts where agonist-bound PR drove an anti-growth program that the authors floated as cancer therapy. Whether it pushes the same way, the opposite way, or neither in Trenbolone-exposed male breast ducts is unmeasured. PR also sets the amount of estrogen receptor through ESR1, the gene that encodes ER. And occupied PR binds the ESR1 promoter and keeps it demethylated. DNA methylation is a chemical tag that silences a gene, so as long as ESR1 stays methylated, the gene keeps being expressed and ER protein is maintained. Deplete PR and methylation rises and ESR1 expression drops. That maintenance depends on the receptor being empty. The same paper reports that an occupied PR represses ESR1. Trenbolone is an agonist, the occupied state, so the mechanism gives no reason to expect more ER protein under Trenbolone, if anything less. For this effect, the direction is unestablished, not just the magnitude. Which way PR turns at all depends on which version of it is present. PRA and PRB come from one gene and share an identical drug binding pocket, so Trenbolone binds both with the same affinity, and selectivity cannot originate at the binding step. Why Tren breaks the brain. A 32-year-old French man walks into a police station and tells the officers he just killed his girlfriend. He stabbed her several times with a kitchen knife. The blood draw 90 minutes later comes back clean of alcohol, clean of prescription medications, clean of every recreational drug the lab panel screens for, and positive for 2 anabolic steroids. Dianabol at 32 nanograms per milliliter and trenbolone at 9 nanograms per milliliter.
I can guarantee you he didn't stab his girlfriend due to Tren. He is just an unhinged whack job. Plenty of people are on Tren and don't murder their girlfriend.
Hair analysis a few weeks later confirms chronic use, not a one-time event. There is no history of mental illness, no history of violence, no neurological disease, no other variable in his biography to explain the act. Tren is sold to the bodybuilding community as a hypertrophy compound, an androgen receptor agonist with very high binding affinity, resistant to aromatization, and resistant to 5-alpha reduction. The same molecule also crosses the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, Chris Benoit had really bad CTE. You don't have any data whatsoever linking steroid use to violence, but there absolutely is data linking CTE to violence. And then people like go on about, oh, he was on steroids, that's why he did it. It's just fucking stupid.
Binds the androgen receptor deep in emotional regulation networks, activates progesterone receptors at a higher affinity than progesterone itself, suppresses the brain's local synthesis of its own neuroactive steroids, and rewires the structural biology of regions responsible for fear.
Dude, since I've been on Tren, I've been a lot more calm. And I sleep better. I'm probably a weird outlier where just the way it interacts with my own neurotransmitters and chemistry is different. But I am noticeably more calm, level-headed, relaxed, and I can pretty much just sleep on command. It's very easy for me to get to sleep now. I don't know if it's ever been this easy for me to sleep. It's pretty easy for me to get to bed now.
Fear, threat, sexual arousal, and impulse control. 6 layers of evidence converge on 2 findings. The brain is structurally altered by the end of typical Tren use. Whether those changes reverse after Tren is stopped is the harder question. The epidemiology. In 2026, an international research team published the Trenbolone Sandwich, the first study designed specifically to compare Trenbolone users to other AAS users on psychosocial and physical outcomes. Of over 1,000 AAS users sampled through the Global Drug Survey, 237 had used injectable Trenbolone in the past 12 months. Every psychosocial symptom moved in the same direction for the Trenbolone group: anger, depression, mood instability, irritability, loss of interest in previously enjoyable activities, and relationship difficulties.
Literally the opposite for me. Literally the opposite.
The 2 strongest signals were loss of interest, the clinical marker for anhedonia, and negative impact on heart, both at a phi of 0.02. Phi values in the 0.013 to 0.20 range are small to moderate effect sizes. In a survey of this size, that's a real signal. Every symptom moves in the same direction at the same magnitude, which is what makes the finding hard to dismiss. The Bonenti team also plotted how symptoms co-occurred, and that's the key analytical finding. The non-Trenbolone group had a larger total volume of symptoms reported, but these symptoms were scattered across different people. The Trenbolone group reported fewer total symptoms, but these same individuals were reporting multiple psychosocial and multiple physical concerns simultaneously. That, within individual clustering, not the raw count, is what separates Trenbolone users from the rest of the AAS using population. Piakowski and colleagues published an international cohort in 2024 with specific quantitative numbers attached. 282 men using AAS, 93 currently on Trenbolone, all of whom have completed the Bus-Perry Aggression Questionnaire, the standard validated psychological tool to measure aggression. The questionnaire has 4 subscales: physical aggression, verbal aggression, anger, and hostility. Current Tren users scored 15.68 on verbal aggression, past users scored 14.88, and never users scored 13. After controlling for age and body mass, the verbal aggression dose response held up at a p-value.
Yeah, I do not personally have this issue. Trends made me just more relaxed.
Of 0.045. Higher weekly Tren dose tracked with higher verbal aggression scores. and the B equals 7.6 in the published result is the slope of that dose to aggression line. That p-value puts the finding just inside the conventional threshold for statistical significance with a wide confidence interval. Real signal, but borderline. The other three Busperi subscales, physical, aggression, anger, and hostility, did not show significant trend-specific effects after adjustment, and neither did psychological distress measured by the K10 scale. Strip these statistics, and it comes down to this. Trend users talked more aggressively than men who'd never touched it, and the more trend they ran each week, the higher the score climbed, a real signal, but a borderline one. Meanwhile, not. Human imaging, the amygdala findings. Pope and colleagues published the cleanest set of human neuroimaging findings on long-term AAS users available in the literature. 2 findings carry the chapter. The amygdala is the brain's threat detection circuit. It is the structure that decides whether something the person is looking at, hearing, or thinking about gets tagged as dangerous or worth attention. It sits deep in the temporal lobe and connects up to the frontal cortex, which provides the regulatory check on amygdala activity. In a healthy brain, the amygdala notices a threat, the frontal cortex evaluates whether the threat is real and how to respond, and the response is calibrated. In the AAS user brain, on Pope's imaging, the right amygdala is structurally bigger and the regulatory connection from the frontal cortex is weaker. The threat detection circuit is enlarged and the cortical input that normally constrains it is reduced. The resting state is very important here. These brain regions were scanned when the person was sitting still, not doing any task. The threat detection circuit and the regulatory circuit are communicating less even at baseline. A bigger, less regulated threat detection circuit makes a smaller insult feel like a larger threat. That is the structural substrate for irritability, anger, and behavioral escalation in the case report literature. The same circuit also tags sexual.
Yeah, I have absolutely no worry about psychological side effects on trend now for me personally.
Sexual stimuli as salient, meaning the amygdala helps decide what gets perceived as arousing.
That's one thing I've noticed. I think it's slightly easier for me to get sexually aroused, just slightly. So the floor for what will like give me an erection has lowered. But it's not by that much. That's the only thing I've noticed.
Matters for layer 5. This is the single piece of evidence in the entire brain section hardest to argue with. Monozygotic twins are identical genetically. They share the same genome, the same household, the same food, the same childhood environment. When identical twins diverge on a behavioral outcome and the only documented difference between them is one is using AAS and the other is not, the standard objection collapses entirely. The objection is that people who choose AAS were always going to be like that the selection bias is making the change. 3 twin pairs, one of them, the using twin, abducted and shot a woman while on AAS. The non-using twin had no history of violence. Same genome, same upbringing, different exposure, different outcome. The exposure here is making the change. Pope's cohort is heterogeneous.
I mean, that really doesn't say anything.
AAS users, not trend-specific. The amygdala finding generalizes to all AAS users rather than specifically to trend. Given what layers 1 and 2 showed about trend-specific signal, the trend-specific magnitude is presumably larger than the cohort average, but that is an inference, not a measurement. Behavioral disinhibition, the trend-me phenotype, and the attraction shift question. This is the layer the user community already knows well. The literature is just now catching up with it, and the orientation question lives inside of this data. Pietkowski and colleagues in 2023 ran a semi-structured review study with 16 image and performance-enhancing drug users, most with personal trend-blown experience. The dominant theme across interviews was the description of an altered identity state. The phrases came from participants, not from researchers. The users had their own vocabulary for what happens during trend use, an altered persona recognizable as themselves, but distinguishable from their off-trend self, mood liability.
Yeah, I do not have anything like that.
Impulsivity, loss of moral compass, cheating on partners, picking fights, breaking relationships, making decisions out of character. Critically, the participants located this specifically in trenbolone, distinguishing it from the effects of testosterone or other AAS they had used. The phenotype the literature is now mapped.
I've been really, really lucky with just side effects on gear in general. Haven't had blood pressure issues. The hematocrit thing's a meme, but my hematocrit hasn't been elevated. Haven't noticed any detrimental lipid changes so far. Haven't had acne issues, gyno issues. And psychologically, every steroid I've taken has just made me feel better. Haven't taken a single steroid where I noticed that I was more agitated, angry, anxious, depressed. Like, every one I've taken, I've just felt better. I would say Boldenone and Tren, in particular, have the best effect on my mood. Boldenone just gives me a really nice, pleasant feeling of wellness. And it does have a calming effect. And Tren just makes me really nice, relaxed, mellow, chill. I don't get frustrated as easy. And it really helps with sleep. I've noticed my sleep is way better on Tren, which is fucking hilarious. That's the one thing everybody fucking complains about, that they can't sleep on Tren, but I sleep great on Tren.
Mapping was named by the user community before.
The only steroids I really go out of my way to avoid would just be orals. There's not really much point in using them. Anavar's safe. Anavar's the one that it's extremely innocuous. It's not a problem to use, but yeah, Anadrol, Winstrol, D-Ball, Halo. Methyl test is pretty rare, but my supplier actually has it. I've actually heard a lot of people really love the way they feel on methyl test, but it's extremely liver toxic. Really, really bad for your liver, but apparently it makes you feel great, and it's extremely potent for strength. But yeah, just orals just aren't particularly useful, and they're just known to be very liver toxic. The exception of Anavar, it's pretty mild.
For any of the peer-reviewed publications. One participant gave the cleanest published description of the receptor pharmacology in a user's own voice. I know that it fries your frontal cortex. Not only does it remove your moral compass, you just stop thinking. And maybe this is a really bad idea if I cheat on my partner because I'm just so full of testosterone and trenbolone. I want to fuck anything with a heartbeat. Each phrase tracks onto something the chapter has already maps. Fries your frontal cortex is the Pope amygdala frontal cortex.
Yeah, I haven't noticed increased sexual desire for anyone other than my partner. That's it. I'm only interested in my girlfriend. So, yeah, Tren's great for me. I fucking love Tren. I wouldn't recommend it for most people, but yeah, Tren's great for me.
Disconnection finding in user language. Removes your moral compass is the cortical regulation degradation. Same neurobiology, you just stop thinking, is the consequence appraisal offline component. And the final clause is amplified arousal state with a broadened target. The participant is pointing at a state where arousability is turned up and what gets tagged as arousing is broader than what was tagged before Tren use. Partner cheating is one downstream consequence. The underlying state is what the participant is naming. The participant is reaching for the experimental vocabulary they have, which is bodybuilding form vernacular, not pharmacology. But what they are pointing at is the integrated output of the receptor system, the attraction shift question. A specific instance of the Tren-Me phenotype gets reported consistently in the user community. A shift in the pattern of what produces sexual arousal during Tren use. Users describe novel attraction targets, broadened arousability, fantasy content outside of their pre-Tren pattern, and the partner.
Yeah, I haven't noticed any different patterns of sexual interest at all.
behavior they would have not engaged in before TREN. Some describe this as a shift in orientation. Some describe it as a shift in what turns them on without a shift in who they are. Some describe it as a state of generalized arousal that attaches to whichever stimulus is in front of them. The phenomenon is reported widely enough across forums and clinical interviews that the user community treats it as a recognized side effect of TREN specifically, distinguished from the libido increase produced by other AAS. The community level recognition is the strongest evidence on the table. No peer-reviewed study has measured orientation change in a TREN user as an endpoint. 5 separate neurobiological substrates that govern sexual arousal, partner preference, reward, attachment, and behavioral inhibition are all being perturbated simultaneously in the same direction. First, the progesterone receptor in the medial prooptic area, the medial amygdala, and the ventral medial hypothalamus is being occupied by a high-affinity synthetic agonist for months at a time. The medial prooptic area is the brain region most directly responsible for male typical sexual behavior. The medial amygdala is the part of the threat circuit involved in sexual recognition. The ventral medial protective stack. The brain on TREN is not the brain on testosterone. TREN acts on receptors, testosterone doesn't. The progesterone receptor, the glucocorticoid receptor, the mineralocorticoid receptor, and TREN hits the androgen receptor at higher affinity at a non-aromatizable steady state with no estradiol pushback. The cumulative effect across typical TREN use is the cascade this chapter mapped: a leaking blood-brain barrier, degraded synaptic scaffolding, fewer learning receptors, and less myelin, an amygdala enlarged, and an underregulated cortex. The brain owns benzodiazepine suppressed, reward and serotonin signaling shifted, and a Leydig cell population that does not recover, none of it quantifiable with blood work. A user whose post-TREN hormone panel looks normal can still be sitting on the full structural cascade. The panel measures testosterone, estradiol, lipids, and liver enzymes, not the barrier, the synapses, the myelin, or the Leydig damage. The damage is invisible to the labs the community usually relies on. The single best
If I'm not getting any of these symptoms, I really doubt I'm getting any brain damage from TREN.
best supported move is the one the Zhao data points at directly. Run physiological testosterone underneath TREN because restoring androgen tone reversed the synaptic damage in the one study that tested it. The Rasmussen-Leydig finding is the mechanism-justified case for HCG during TREN use to keep the cell population from being cold. And because none of this surfaces on a hormone panel, clean post-TREN blood work is not the all-clear it feels like. Dose and duration are what determine how much of this cascade actually run. They are the inputs with the largest effect under the user's control. Layered protective candidates. Several additional candidates extend that recommendation into the brain damage cascade itself. Each one maps to a specific arm of the mechanism this chapter laid out. Safety data filter. Every molecule in this stack carries robust human safety data. Isradipine, memantine, and minocycline are FDA approved for other indications and have decades of post-marketing surveillance behind them. Edifoxine has been marketed in France as Stressem since 1979 with a substantial European safety database. The parent compound of allopregnanolone ester is brexanolone, which is FDA approved as Zulresso for postpartum depression. Androsterone is an endogenous human steroid metabolite present in normal physiology. I do not recommend molecules that lack safety data, and I will not recommend any here. The risk profile of every candidate in this stack is well established. The open question is whether the dose required to actually blunt the cascade TREN drives is achievable in practice. Calcium overload arm, intranasal isradipine. The calcium overload arm is addressed by an L-type calcium channel blocker. Calcium channels are the protein doorways through which calcium enters cells. L-type is one.
No, testosterone has benefits to mental health with escalating doses, so what you just said is completely untrue.
Of the several subfamilies of these doorways and the one most active in the heart vasculature and certain neuronal populations. Inside the L-type family, there is a subtype called CAV1.3, and CAV1.3 is the specific doorway that opens when the membrane androgen receptor is activated. CAV1.3 is what drives the calcium influx into the hippocampal neurons that initiates the excitotoxicity cascade. The drug class that blocks L-type calcium channels is called the dihydropyridines. Several of them are FDA approved for high blood pressure. Isradipine is the one in that class that preferentially blocks CAV1.3 over the other L-type subtypes. The problem with oral isradipine is that blood pressure drops to symptomatic levels before the oral dose required to actually block brain CAV1.3 channels can be reached. Intranasal isradipine resolves that constraint by delivering the drug directly through the olfactory and trigeminal pathways, which are the nerves that connect the nasal lining directly to the brain. The drug crosses into the brain at those points and bypasses the systemic circulation almost entirely. The pharmacokinetic data is striking. At 3 hours after intranasal dosing, the brain concentration was 80 times the blood concentration. At 6 hours, isradipine was undetectable in the blood, while brain concentrations were still in the range that blocked CAV 1.3. The drug is acting where the receptor is without dropping blood pressure at the periphery. The clinical formulation is in commercial development through Cavalent Therapeutics. The brain targeting result is still preprint, but isradipine itself is not toxic. It has been through large peer-reviewed human trials in early Parkinson's disease, so its safety profile is well characterized. The open question...
And boy, where do I get one of these cats? Oh. Well, they tend to just find you. There's a cat distribution system. Wow. Is my cat down here? Oh yeah, there he is. Hey, Gum Gum. Hey, baby. Come here. Come here, Gum Gum. Yeah, he likes to sit on my racing sim rig chair while I'm down here. Just wait for me to get to bed, but sometimes he comes on my lap. He needs cuddles sometimes. He likes to just be around me. Basically, wherever I am, he's around. That's a nice kitty. Wow. Oh my goodness. Oh, he's purring good. Oh, wow. Oh. That's what you call a good cat. Wow. That's a really good cat. Wow, such a loud purr. That's really good. Thanks, Ben Boy.
Is getting enough into the brain. NMDA excitotoxicity are memantine. The NMDA-driven excitotoxicity downstream of the calcium overload is addressed by memantine. NMDA receptors come in two locations on a neuron. The synaptic ones sit at the contact point between the two neurons and handle normal communication. The extrasynaptic ones sit outside the contact zone and only activate when glutamate floods the area, which is the pathological condition that defines excitotoxicity.
Thanks for the membership, Stitching.
Memantine preferentially blocks the extrasynaptic receptors and spares the synaptic receptors. The selectivity is the whole reason memantine works clinically without disrupting normal brain function. Memantine binds the open channel only during prolonged extrasynaptic activation that defines excitotoxicity. It releases quickly enough that it does not accumulate during normal synaptic communication. The selectivity in hippocampal neurons was demonstrated directly by Jia, Chen, and Zhang and Lipton in 2010. The FDA-approved indication is moderate to severe Alzheimer's disease, where the same extrasynaptic excitotoxicity mechanism is implicated. Microglial activation arm minocycline. The microglial activation and neuro, which are the receptors that handle the does with synthetic analogs. Redundant GABAergic tone, androsterone. Androsterone is the third option for restoring GABA clinical demonstration against this specific exposure. The bulk of the direct CNS mechanism is rat and mouse data. The Zhao synaptic protein loss findings, the Zhao MMP8 cascade, the Zhang myelin disruption, the Barecki-reviewed presenilin and NMDA receptor effects all come from rodent studies at doses and developmental windows that do not translate one-to-one onto a human recreational user across 16 weeks of tren use. The mechanism is reproducible across multiple laboratory techniques in the same animals, but the magnitude of damage in human users has not been directly measured. The Bonetti and Pietkowski quantitative cohorts are cross-sectional and self-reported. The effect sizes are modest, and the within AES comparison controls for the obvious AES versus clean selection effects, but cannot fully isolate trenbolone from the polypharmacy pattern confound. Tren users in both datasets stacked more compounds and ran longer duration use than the comparator AES users. The Pietkowski qualitative work and the Lamb form discourse work are not casual designs.
All right. Well, I'm glad that Tren's been working out for me. That's all that's important at the end of the day. Let's just practice some Battletoads. Where's the fucking thing? Fucking Battletoads, dude. Ugh. Ah. Oh shit. That was close. Oh my god. I can't fucking believe that. I didn't fuck up like that on all the other runs. Oh, oh my god. Like, why? I don't know. I didn't even do this on all the other fucking runs, dude. So fucking stupid. It didn't jump! It just didn't fucking jump! Okay, we're just... I don't know if there's any fucking point. It's literally the worst fucking run today. It literally just did not do the input. I fucking jumped at the right time. That was bullshit. Okay, yeah, fuck this. This fucking game is so fucking stupid. I can't stand it. Give him pets and cuddles. Yes. It's a nice kitty. Look at him. He wants pets and cuddles. It's a good cat.
It's going to be rather generic things that come before.
Appearance, rest.
And getting the most bang for your buck when it comes to those. Because obviously you're only allowed in the gym for a specific amount of time. Well, allowed. You're only in the gym for a specific amount of time. You don't want to be in there forever. It does come down to the point about trading your exercises for ones that would be the most beneficial to you to see the changes occur that you're wishing to.
Yeah. All right. It is late. I'm gonna get to bed. I'm planning on filming a vlog tomorrow, so I'll show what I eat because people have been asking for that. I'm still gonna do the afternoon workout stream. So I'm gonna splice in some of the footage from the training stream into the vlog. And I gotta get groceries tomorrow too, so I'll film that and shit. And I'll show everyone how I make whatchamacall, soy chunks and the curry I make and shit like that. So that'll be happening tomorrow. But hope you all had fun. Big thanks to everybody who donated on Streamlabs. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you all tomorrow, and I should have a vlog out either tomorrow night or the next day, depending on if I have time to edit. But nighty night. See you tomorrow for